IB Nation, how is it going, everybody? It is Thursday, February 16th, and I'm going to tell y'all know how much I love y'all. You know how much I love being here with y'all doing these shows. Today is my wife's birthday, and I'm still stepping up and I'm doing a show today. So we're going to have a fun show today, and we're going to talk about, obviously, everything that's kind of gone on the last couple days. Here's the thing, though. We got our venting out. Ryan got his out. I got mine out. Y'all got yours out. Here's what we're not going to do, folks. We're not just going to keep kind of complaining about the same stuff. What's done is done, right? There's spin coming out from Notre Dame about how, well, we actually did do this, and it's all bull. It is what it is. It's spin. We're moving past it. We're not going to focus on what Notre Dame has done and what Notre Dame will move forward from a football standpoint. And that's what our focus is going to be on. So I would appreciate in the chat if y'all could kind of stick with us on this and just say, hey, look, it doesn't mean we have to accept everything or like everything, but we don't have to complain about the same things every single day. It is what it is. And so we're going to focus on what we can do and what has happened. And so what has happened, obviously, Ryan, since yesterday's show, we obviously talked about the Gino Goduli hire during the show. We'll talk about that a little bit more today. And then, of course, last evening, Gerad Parker was we got official word that he was going to be the next offensive coordinator name, which we expected. We made very clear yesterday in our show. I had the article talking about it yesterday morning where I said this is the move that they've got to make. This is the move that Marcus Freeman has to make now. Because of everything that's happening, this is the move he has to make. And so now you talk about those. We're talking about those guys. We'll talk about what the job that's left, which is an offensive line coach. We'll dive into that. We'll talk about what the needs are there and what Marcus Freeman needs to do at that position. And then Ryan, spent a lot of time the last couple of days really trying to find out and dive into what will a Gerad Parker offense actually look like. And so we'll talk about that today too, Ryan. But here's the reality. What's done is done. The administration did what they did. They can spin it all they want, and they can put their little, hey, we'll talk to this person. Let's go to ESPN first, and let's talk to this person. No. Here's what really happened, okay? The reality is everything they did was nothing but save face. That's it. The damage was done. There was no way they were getting Andy Ludwig after that initial colossal failure. Everything they did following was nothing more than a ploy to say, we got to save face so we can put a spin on it and say, no, everything was wonderful. They dropped the ball. They didn't do what they needed to do. End of story. And now we are where we are. Okay, so that's the reality of it, Ryan. Now it's time to move forward and focus on what can they do now to go out and say the expectation doesn't change for the football team. I promise y'all, Marcus Freeman is not lowering expectations for this football team because of what happened. I promise y'all that. And that's what our focus is going to be on, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it, man. Like I said, we had and like you kind of introed here, we had our venting session, right? Things did not go exactly how we would have liked them to go, or at least the process to get to where we are, right? But at the end of the day, Marcus Freeman has moved on. He moved on a couple days ago. We're moving on as a staff, and I'm excited to give it a chance, at the end of the day, right? There's promising coaches all throughout this coaching staff, including now on the offensive side of football. We have a couple new coaches and new roles to talk about. So it's going to be fun really diving into everything because there are a lot of unknowns, but unknowns aren't always a negative, right? Like I think that we always think that unknown is the scary thing, and it can be at times. But there's also the other side of it that's like, that's exciting, right? Something new is coming to Notre Dame. So I'm excited to get into what it could be, what it might be, and then ultimately see where it ultimately does land as far as what it does transpire to being. I think that that's going to be a big thing that we're going to talk about all off season. We'll speculate, we'll brainstorm, we'll try to throw out some ideas and what we think it'll look like. But ultimately, we're playing a guessing game, which can be exciting. It doesn't have to always be scary.
I think that's the thing too, Ryan. And we've seen this in the past, right? We've seen some of these hires that have been, I don't know what Clark Lee is going to do. I know what he did as an assistant coach at Syracuse and Wake Forest and Bowling Green, but I don't know what he's going to do as a defensive coordinator. And lo and behold, did pretty well, right? Did a good job. And so we've seen this around the country, guys that are unproven guys or have very, very limited experience. What was Garrett Riley's experience as a coordinator? A year at SMU, 2 years at SMU. If you got the chops, you got the chops. I don't know if Gerad Parker has the chops. I know this. He was a darn good tight ends coach for Notre Dame this year. But as we've said in the past, just because you're a good tight ends coach or position coach doesn't mean you're going to be a good coordinator. Just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're going to be a head coach. And just because you're a good head coach doesn't mean you'd be a good coordinator. And so we'll talk about those things as well. But I'm excited to see what it is, right? Because I think the one thing we can all agree on, I think the one thing, no matter what, Ryan, you and I can agree on, everybody in the chat can agree on, and I'm going to be honest with you, if you don't agree on this, then I don't want to hear from you. We all hope that this hire works out for Marcus Freeman. We all hope that Gerad Parker goes out there and crushes it. We all hope that by the end of the 2023 season, we all see why Marcus Freeman put the faith in Gerad Parker that he did.
Right.
Now, we don't know that it's going to work out. I have no idea. I think Marcus Freeman thinks that it will. That's why he didn't continue the search for anyone outside. But we don't know. We're going to focus on what we do know and what we've been able to learn about what people are telling us and what we've seen and all those type of things about what they're going to do. But I think we all believe, when you look at this whole thing, the reality is it's an opportunity for Marcus Freeman. It's an opportunity for Marcus Freeman to say, okay, I am doubling down on my way. And if you're not on board, bounce, right? And honestly, like it's a theoretical thing, but I'm putting a fence around my program, and it's going to be me, my assistant coaches, like you got the people like the trainer. But like the people that are involved with our program, we're putting and then of course the players, we're putting a fence around us, and we're in our own universe. This is us. This is us against the world, and I think that we'll see that mentality come out. We're already starting to see it. Because of the lack of the support that some of these kids are getting in certain areas and that are outside the football program. And when I say football program, I'm talking about coaches and players, strength staff, right? So I know Ron Paulus likes to think he's part of the football program, but to me, he's administration, right? That's who he is. I don't think he's part of the football program. He likes to insert himself into it because of what his job title is, but he's administration. And so to me, we are our circle, and no one else out there is going to do what is going to step up and help us. We are going to do what we need to do to go out and help us. And I think that's the kind of rallying cry that they need to have. And hopefully Marcus Freeman is correct that this hire is going to work out and be good and go from there. So we'll kind of focus a lot on that today, Ryan. Before we get into the Gerad Parker stuff, I did want to just spend a little bit of time on Gino Goduli, as we've been able to do a little bit more homework, a little bit more research, and just kind of come to the point of just really finalizing what this hire means for Notre Dame, and then also sort of what Gino Goduli needs to do. What's in front of him, Ryan? What's the task in front of him? And that's obviously what we'll discuss a little bit today. Then we'll get into the Gerad Parker stuff. So, Ryan, obviously I had a gut reaction to the Gino Goduli hire yesterday during the show. It wasn't a shocking revelation. I wrote an article yesterday. You and I talked about this the day before. We knew this was the direction that Marcus Freeman was going to go. I didn't expect it to happen yesterday during the show, but we knew this is what was going to happen. And so we've had some time to think about it and marinate on it and discuss kind of what this hire means for Notre Dame, what we think of Gino Goduli and his task. So I'll just kind of give you a first opportunity, Ryan, just to kind of just once again kind of share your thoughts or your feeling and your reaction to what this move means for Notre Dame and being able to go out and get Gino Goduli.
I mean, I think it's a great perspective to have, to first and foremost, right? I mean, I think that when you're talking about, we're going to talk about the Gerad Parker stuff ad nauseum, right? As far as what is it going to look like? What is it, where is he going to find his bread and butter? Where is he going to really assert his image on the offensive play calling and what the foundations are of the offense? But I think that one great thing that he has is he does have some nice supports around him, and I think that's the first and foremost. When I heard that Gino Goduli was going to be the quarterback coach, I'm like, that's a really nice perspective to have with Gerad Parker. I think that's a great perspective because he's been an OC, although very abrupt time as an OC, but he's been a quarterback coach. He's been a passing coordinator. He's been around some really good football teams, right? So I think that seeing that perspective on a day-to-day is going to be beneficial. And then the one thing that everyone in the chat has talked about for so long, and I do think it's very beneficial, is that now that you have a quarterback coach that is strictly just a quarterback coach, right? A guy to work with that room day in and day out and see through and not have his attention diverted to another area or, game planning, all that great stuff. you have a guy that is able to consistently be that presence in the room. So I think it's great for the quarterbacks. I think it's great for a inexperienced offensive coordinator that's obviously taken over at Notre Dame. And he has a good track record working with quarterbacks. You know, we've talked about what he did with Desmond Ridder over the last few years, which was phenomenal work, in my opinion. Really good stuff. So now you have all those things. And then also from the recruiting side of things, I'm going to have a little bit more of a deeper update on this later, Brian, but I did have a chance to talk to a couple of the 2024 recruits, including Cam Williams, Cam Williams has a very good relationship with Gino Goduli. Very good. He talks about, Gino's my man or something like that. He's like, that's my guy, right? So I think that when we're talking about, what's the impact as far as the change and how guys are committed to the program and future classes, all that stuff, Gino Goduli, from every person that I've talked to so far from the recruiting side of things, and this is directly to recruits, is that he is a very liked recruiter. Like, they really like Gino. They really do. They really like him. So I think that is big time for help from the recruiting side of things. I think that it's a really nice perspective to have in the room. And I think that he's done really good work just developing quarterbacks. So I think it's I don't see any downside to this move, man. I just think it's a really good addition to a quarterback room that needs stability, in my opinion.
I agree. And, you talked about the recruiting aspect of it, Ryan. We talked about this yesterday in the show. He offered CJ Carr and developed enough of a relationship with CJ that CJ visited Cincinnati unofficially last March before he eventually made his decision in Notre Dame. So when he went on his, let me go look at the schools that I like and the coaches I like, is because that was right around, if you go back and recall, around March is when CJ wanted to commit to Notre Dame, but his dad said, hey, let's hold off on that. Let's get out and see other schools and really make sure that this is what you want to do, which I think it's good leadership from a parent standpoint. His dad kind of knew what was going on with the Dante stuff behind the scenes and just wanted to kind of let things play out. I thought that was good. Good job by Mr. Carl on that. But one of the first schools CJ went and saw during that process was Cincinnati. Now, part of that's because you start the schools that are close to you, then you go visit Miami and some other places. But he did get down to Cincinnati and checked out Cincinnati. So I would imagine, and I haven't heard directly from CJ yet, but I would imagine that this hire is good. He's going to be on board with. I would imagine. That's an assumption, so I don't want to say for sure. So I think that should help with that. And you talked about Cam Williams. I was talking with Sean Davis beforehand, and we've both reached out to a lot of different people and about Gino in the Midwestern. The opinion that we've heard from people is this guy is a really good recruiter in the Midwest. Yes. Like, everybody knows Gino. I mean, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, everybody knows who Gino is. And that's not just from, he played football at Cincinnati, but he's done really a lot of work as a coach, and he grinds. That's the thing that we hear as a recruiter, he grinds. And so you're going to have a coach as well, Ryan, that's going to be focused just on coaching the quarterback position. Yep. I have said in the past, I have no problem with an OC being a quarterback's coach. So I never bought into the whole, quarterbacks aren't coached well because the OC is the quarterback's coach. I never bought into that stuff. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing either when you just have a quarterback's coach. And so I think in this instance, you're going to have someone that's whose entire process is going to basically be around the quarterbacks. But he's also someone who has experience running a whole offense, who has experience being a pass game coordinator. He's someone who has coached other positions. He coached the running backs in 2017. Which, I'm a fan of. So I think it gives a coach a greater appreciation for how everything works when you've coached other positions. So I think the hire, there's no downside to this hire from what we know. I think the fit will be fine. Again, he's a Kentucky guy. He went to Fort Thomas in Highlands, Kentucky, played at Cincinnati, has coached at Cincinnati. He's familiar with what Notre Dame's all about. And so I think and he's played the position, and he played it at a pretty good level. I mean, he's the school's all-time leader in passing yards, and he's second all-time in passing touchdowns. The only guy that's passed him in passing touchdowns was his pupil, Desmond Ridder. Yep. Right? And Desmond Ritter's number 2 all-time in passing yards behind Gino. So I think that's a good hire. I think it's a strong hire, recruiting hire. It's a strong coaching hire. And he's a guy that obviously played the position, can relate to players. I think he's a younger guy, but he's not young. right?
Right.
I mean, he's more in kind of my generation as opposed to some others. He played at Cincinnati in the early 2000s. He's about 40 years old. He'll be 40 next month. So he's young, but he's not like young. And I think that matters a little bit too. And played professional football ish. I mean, played for a few years in some different leagues. Arena League was on the obviously played at Cincinnati. Was undrafted. Spent a little bit of time trying to make the Titans roster. Spent some time in the I think the CFL. Spent some time in Arena League. And so that kind of pushed his coaching career back a little bit. He didn't get started actually until 2010. So. But he's been a college football coach for over 10 years. And, obviously, as we said, Ryan has done a really nice job in that regard. And where did he coach? Cincinnati and Central Michigan, right? That's it. And, recently was hired at Wisconsin and Notre Dame obviously took him away from Luke Fickell there. And it fits with what Marcus Freeman has I think, really emphasizes and what we think he needs to emphasize, which is I know Gino. I worked with Gino. I know what he's all about. He knows what I'm all about. And if Gino didn't believe in what Marcus Freeman was doing, he's not leaving Luke Fickell in Wisconsin to come down to Notre Dame.
100%.
And I think that's important. After everything that was happened, that's incredibly important, right?
Well, Brian, you know how I am. After I know that somebody's on Notre Dame's radar, becomes a hire by Notre Dame, I go and I just watch every interview on YouTube I can find, man. I was listening to the press conference for Gino. I was listening to him being mic'd up on the field. One thing I really like is and this is something that has been this is how people have described Gerad Parker as far as coach players that have been under him and recruits and all that type of stuff. There's an energy about him, which is really cool, man. Like I think that and it makes sense that Gino is a respected recruiter on the trail because there's just he's got kind of like a funny but like awkward personality a little bit, but he carries himself really well, but he's just really relatable, it sounds like to me. So I think that he will do a good job recruiting, and I think that he's relatable for the players that are on the staff as well. So I just get a really good vibe of the energy that he brings to the table. So I'm a fan of it, man. Like I said, I really don't see a downside. His resume is good. He's a younger guy. He has specialized in the position that he's going to be coaching. He's got experience calling an offense, calling a passing game. Like, there's just really not a downside to it, in my opinion.
Here's another part of it too, Ryan. When you are going with a coach who's been a coordinator for 2 years, that's it. That's not inexperience, but it's not experience either, right? You have a guy that's transitioning he's really just going into his second year at Notre Dame. Having another coach with a background of calling plays, putting together a game plan, and those type of things, to me, is going to be important. I think getting as many people with experience like that. The key, however, is you've got to be able to work together, right? Because you can have, I want a coaching staff where my offensive coordinator or all my position coaches are all really wicked smart guys with strong opinions, but they also understand that they're working together as one unit. And it's not about my ideas, your ideas, and your ego. It's, hey, we're going to talk ball. We're going to spit ball. We're going to brainstorm. We're going to get on the board. We're going to break down film. We're going to challenge each other, because that's what you do to come to the best thing that you're going to do. And I think that that's important. As long as they work well together, having someone with his background, a year as an offensive coordinator at Cincinnati, obviously last year, having to fill the role of the things that they had to do at Cincinnati last year. He was a pass game coordinator for Cincinnati in 2020 and 2021. I've heard plenty of rumblings over the years that in 2021, Gino had a lot of the play calling responsibilities. It wasn't as much Mike Denbrock. A lot of it was Gino from the booth calling things down. So I don't know if that's true or not, but we heard those rumors before all this happened. We heard those last year as well. So having that kind of coach, I think, really helps. And one of the things I've been told about Gerad Parker, and I don't know if this is true or not, this is what I've been told, is that he is someone who believes in the staff has to work together to put game plans together and those type of things. Now, as the OC, I'm the decision maker and I have the final say, and we're going to kind of go with, this is where I want to go with the offense. Now help me get there. But he understands how important it is to kind of work together. And I think that'll be good. And when we say things like this, it's not saying that, well, Tommy Rees never did that. That's not what I'm saying. I don't really care to get into that. I care to focus on what they're going to be moving forward. And I think that's an important thing. But I think it was harder for the offensive staff to work together last year because it was a lot of guys that don't know each other. And I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge this year as well, Ryan, because you will have a new quarterbacks coach who he knows Marcus Freeman and Gerad Parker knows Marcus Freeman, but I don't believe they've ever coached together. And so, there is going to have to be learning that relationship. And then, of course, a new offensive line coach is going to come in. And, you do have Chancey who's coming back and Dealin who's back for now. And so, you look at those things and you say, okay, they're going to have to learn each other again a little bit. There's going to be a process to that. And they've got to learn to figure it out quickly because they're going to have to get on the same page. But having a guy like Gino, who as an offensive coordinator, I can rely on to maybe take a bigger role in sort of the prep and the game planning and whose ideas you can say, hey, what's something you guys did that you really liked or that you didn't like or that really worked for you? Having more guys that have been in that battle and had to make those decisions, I think, is helpful as long as everybody understands what their current role is on the staff.
Well, and I think, it's just my pulse, Brian, because I haven't talked to, Gerad Parker, right? But from everything I've heard, from interviews he's done, from just, people that know him, he does seem like the kind of guy that would be very open to what do you think about this, right? Because there are, to your point, there are a lot of offensive coordinators who are just egotistical, man, just like to the highest degree. Like, my way is the only way. I don't want to hear about it. You do what I tell you to do. Gerad Parker does strike me as a guy that will be very open to other people's ideas. Like whoever the offensive line and coach coming in, like, what do you like to coach? What is the style? What type of plays have you specialized in? What do you feel like this offensive line can do best here? Talking to Chancey, what passing game schematics do you like best? What route combinations do you feel like fit best with what we have on this roster, right? Dylan McCullough, what run game runs do you feel like your running backs implement the best? They work through the best, their vision, all that type of stuff. Gino, tell me what you see in these quarterbacks every single day. Where's their bread and butter? What do you think Sam Hartman really excels at? I think he will be open to that because he just seems like that type of personality that won't be like, my way is the highway, and I'm the only one that knows anything about football. Because we know that there are a lot of offensive coordinators, a lot of coaches in general that are like that. So I'm excited to see the meshing of ideas because I do think, and again, this is just my assumption, I don't know this 100% certainty, but I do think Gerad Parker seems like the type of guy that will be very open to other people's perspectives and ideas.
Well, he better be, because I think that's the way to go. And I think Gino Goduli will bring value based on the things that we've heard. So I think this is a good positive move for Notre Dame. Obviously, the other move that Notre Dame made was promoting Gerad Parker to the offensive coordinator position. He will still coach the tight ends. That's been asked a lot. So he will continue to coach the tight ends. I think one of the benefits of having an offensive coordinator who is a tight ends coach, we've seen it before, and is that you can still work with your guys, but you can also say, hey, you guys, we're working on certain route techniques today. I want you guys going and working with Coach Stuckey in a GA because you guys are learning the same things. Or, hey, we're doing a run period. I want you guys to go work with the offensive line coach in his GA. And I'm going to go over here and, get with Gino on the quarterbacks, or I'm going to go over here and get with Coach Stuckey on the receivers while my guys are working with the offensive line or things like that. Or he can just sit back and analyze. So you can do a little bit of both of those when you have at that particular position. You can't really do that at other positions. Like you can't have if the offensive line coach is the offensive coordinator, you can't send them down to work with the running backs coach, right? Where they're going to still get coached on certain techniques. You have to allow your GA to see that. And same thing with quarterbacks is, you're kind of always with them. And so I think that's obviously something, it's not a plus or a negative. It's just an interesting way that you can kind of go about doing things. And you have to admit the best offensive coordinator Notre Dame has had the last 10 years from a production standpoint is Chip Long, who was, that's not debatable. They averaged over like 2 more points per game offensively. They averaged more yards and yards per play during his tenure. And so Notre Dame had a playoff appearance under his tenure. They had a lot of success under Chip Long offensively and didn't have the talent at the skill positions, in my opinion, that they do now. Not across the board, not with the depth, and still went out and had success. And he was a tight ends coach. Now, that doesn't mean that every offensive coordinator that's tight ends coach is going to be successful. It just means that you can have success with a tight ends coach as your offensive coordinator, as we've seen at Notre Dame.
Yep.
So I think that's another way to look at it too, Ryan. But I see Gerad Parker's promotion, and we're going to find out now, right? This is something that we knew was – I didn't say knew. That's overstating it. We had a feeling that there was going to come a time when Gerad Parker is going to be the OC at Notre Dame. Didn't think it was going to be this offseason, but we had a feeling it was going to happen at some point in time. And now it's time to move forward. And the thing about it is that needs to be discussed is Gerad Parker has a vision for offense. Part of the reason that Marcus Freeman hired him is because Gerad Parker's vision for offense fits in line with what Marcus Freeman wants. And as I said, I think I said this yesterday, Ryan. I know I said it to you, but I don't know if I said it in the show yesterday. Marcus Freeman kind of feigned ignorance a little bit last year. Well, the offense is going to, that's not my thing, and I need to hire someone that I trust. Look, trust me. I'm telling you this confidence. I've known this for a while. Marcus Freeman absolutely has an idea what he wants to do offensively. Is it going to be jumping into drills and teaching the offensive line the proper technique on duo or inside zone? No, that's not what he's talking about. But he very much has a very clear vision for what he wants offensively, the style of offense that he has, and what is required to play complementary football. Because he understands there's two ways to look at complementary football. One is for an offense, if it's a defensive guy, hey, control the clock, don't limit possession so the defense can do this. Then there's the standpoint of, yes, we need to protect the defense at times, but we also understand the importance of scoring points. In conversations that I've had over the last couple months, Marcus Freeman has made it more and more clear to people that this is not a milk the clock, throw for 85 yards a game situation like we saw against Clemson. That's not a knock on anybody. Did you see the win that day? Did you know who was the quarterback? The point is like that's not the ultimate Marcus Freeman offense. It's pro style, it's physical, it's balanced, it's explosive, and it's efficient. That's what he wants, right? So when I say Marcus Freeman's vision, it's not Marcus Freeman saying, okay, we're going to run this pass concept, this pass concept, this pass concept. We're going to run these 4 run plays. We're going to motion and shift this way. It's no, this is my vision. This is my philosophy. This is how I want to be. This is how I want to go about practice. And I need you to buy into that. I need you to carry that out because it has to mesh well with what we're doing defensively as well. And part of this move was because Gerad Parker and Marcus Freeman, clearly from having worked together, being friends, and working together again last year, are on the same page on what this is going to be. And that's really what this came down to is Marcus Freeman said, I could go get somebody from the outside and hope that he's going to buy into my vision that we discussed during the interview process. Or since I didn't get the guy that I wanted, I'm going to now double down and say, okay, I'm going to go with someone that I know can run an offense that's going to do what I want done. And ultimately, that's what this move is about. There's people that say, well, this was forced upon him. Only from the standpoint of he didn't get his number one guy.
Right.
But this is not a move that was forced upon him. This is a move where Marcus Freeman said, with everything going on, I need to make sure that I'm surrounded by people that I trust. And there's not an offensive coordinator candidate out there that Marcus Freeman was going to trust more than Gerad Parker.
Yep. I mean, that's what it comes down to, man. And it's going to be interesting to see how everything obviously follow suit here, but I think it's going to be really interesting too, Brian, because I mean, again, this is just an assumption, but you would think from everything that we've heard as far as how much players really do like Gerad Parker, I'm curious to see how quickly the buy-in comes from that side of the football, right? Like, because he's going to lay out his plan. He's going to lay out the way it looks, obviously combined with Coach Freeman's perspective on this is what the offense is going to look like. This is where we need to go. This is how we're going to get there. All that great stuff, right? And I think ultimately, I'll be very interested to see how long it takes for all the quarterbacks, offensive linemen, everyone involved to really buy into what it's being sold as, right? And I think that, we talked about Gino Goduli, coming to Notre Dame. I think that that's a big help in that vision as well. I think that you're showing that you are willing to put the resources out there for it, right? And you're willing to stick to your vision and stick to your guns and do what you need to do in the overall vision, which I think is great. I mean, it's not like they went out and got an air raid guy, right? And that doesn't fit their vision at all. They just got a guy that they think is a good offensive coordinator, for instance.
Like Sean Lewis, a guy
yes.
that I know the staff felt very high on in his talent potential, but he just wasn't a fit for what they're looking for.
Exactly. So they're not compromising their vision for just a good coach, right? They got a good coach that they think also fits the vision, which I think is very important because ultimately identity is such an underrated thing that we don't talk about enough for a football team, right? What's your identity? How do you see yourself? Where are you going? All that type of stuff. And I think that there's clearly a vision at Notre Dame for what they want to be offensively. And I'm just very hopeful, and I think it will happen, that I do think that the players will buy in pretty quickly under Coach Parker, because I think that, and that's why that's why we kind of put out those quotes from players that had, in the past, what they said about Coach Parker, because I think the big thing that people are missing here is that part of the offensive identity and being a great offensive football team is also that the players around you buy into it, right? Like, they want to play for that. They want to do that because they believe in it. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I want to see early on, is how quickly the players buy in and believe in what Coach Parker and the offensive staff are trying to accomplish.
That's going to be key. If you don't get the players to buy in, if you can't, okay, he's got Marcus Freeman's trust. Now you've got to make sure you get the players' trust. That's going to be key. That goes with how you go about your business. It's how you interact with them. There's going to be a level of, okay, they're going to talk to the tight ends, the guys that maybe aren't sure of them. But, I mean, they're around them every day. The players are around them every day. But it's in a completely different capacity now. You're now the guy standing in front of the room. You're not the guy off to the side listening to the guy who's standing in front of the side of the room. You're now standing in front of the room. You're now the leader. You're now the guy that's going to set the tone. You're going to set the energy level, the tempo, the focus, the practice schedule. You're going to be after the one that says, hey, you got to get all of us going in the same direction now. We're following you. Now go lead. And we're going to find out if Gerad Parker can do that or not, right? And we can sit there and say all we want. Oh, yeah, he's going to do this. He's going to do that. And as we said yesterday, we don't know. We just know what the expectations are. And I think the expectations that I had for the team this year don't change. And what I mean by that is the expectations, to me, Ryan, aren't set by the standard of your coaches. The expectations are set by, this is Notre Dame. This is what the expectation should be. This is the talent that you possess. This is the schedule that you play. Here's what the expectations are. And now it's up to you to meet those expectations. And if anything, surpass those expectations. And so when I say the expectations don't change, it's not that I have the same belief in Gerad Parker that I had in Tommy Rees or Andy Ludwig or whoever else. I'm not saying that. I don't know. We're not going to really have a sense of what a Gerad Parker offense is going to look like from a structure or practice standpoint until we see it in March, right? But what I'm telling you is the standard doesn't change. The expectations don't change. The expectations are you're going to put a championship caliber offense on the field next year. That's what he's being tasked with. Here's the good part. Him, the O-line coach, whoever they hire, Gino Goduli, Chancey Stuckey, Tila McCullough, they're bringing back a really talented group and a lot more experienced group than they had a year ago. Yep. That is something that helps, Ryan. It helps when you can look and say, okay, you're not having to teach a bunch of young kids how to play. You've got kids that have played a lot of snaps, play a lot of football. There's going to be young kids that you got to develop. But this is a group that should be ready to rock and roll. Gerad Parker is going to kind of put his own spin on things, but there's also going to be a level of continuity. You're going to have a new quarterbacks coach, a new O-line coach, and all that stuff, but the terminology is not changing. The basic structure of the offense isn't necessarily going to change, meaning it's still going to be same personnel groupings that we saw. It's just going to be emphasized differently. We'll dive into the run game and different things here in a little bit when we dive into his offense, but there is going to be continuity from we're not having to learn somebody's new playbook. It's going to be very similar. It's just he's going to put his DNA on it, as opposed to Andy Ludwig coming in and having to adapt, what Notre Dame says to what he does and making all this. And I would have been fine with that, but it's just different. And so I think that's a positive when you're promoting from within. It does create a level of continuity, and I think that should help a team that's returning a lot of talent and a lot of experience next year. There's some holes that got to get filled, sure, but there's no excuse for this offense not to be good this year. None, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, there isn't. And I mean, yeah, every team always has a couple holes that they need to fill, right? But the point blank period to it is that you have an experienced quarterback that threw 110 touchdowns during the course of his career. You have a very talented couple quarterbacks behind that quarterback that's coming in for this year. You have one of the top stables of running backs in all of college football. Coach Stuckey has very quickly rebuilt this wide receiver room and turned it into a very talented wide receiver room with 3 early enrollees that came in this spring or this winter, now going into the spring. Not to mention Tobias Merriweather a year older, Deion Colsey a year older. Lorenzo Styles and Jane Thomas a year older. Like, you have dudes everywhere. Offensive line wise, you have maybe the best left tackle in college football. It's very possible. You have one of the best right tackles in college football. You have a starting center coming back. It's an embarrassment of riches from a talent perspective. 31 points a game. It should have been better than 31 points per game last year, but we know the difficulties when you lose a quarterback and you don't have a guy that maybe can create explosive plays. But regardless, the offense should have been more productive than it was last year. This year, there's no excuses, man, because God forbid for a second, Sam Hartman gets hurt. Tyler Buckner coming in the football game was your starting quarterback this season, right, to begin the year. So you have a lot more depth than you've had in recent years at every position across the board. This is a good situation for Coach Parker to get put into, right? This isn't a West Virginia situation where it's like not really has autonomy of his offense, doesn't really have a ton of talent. You're going to have your opportunity to put your imprint on the offense, and you have a lot of talent to work with at the end of the day. So it's a great opportunity. He's going to need to start fast because there's high expectations, obviously, this year. The good thing is, first couple games of the season is not the most trying, so there's going to be a little bit of a transitional period, right? So you can try some stuff out, maybe the first couple games to get really, to get the wheels churning going into the harder portion of the schedule. But the offensive talent is very high at Notre Dame, and there's a lot of depth across the board. So there is –
Ryan froze up on us a little bit there, so we had a little bit of a pause. But you were rocking and rolling, man. You're making some good points, and then your Wi-Fi was like, "No, we're done. We're good." So, Ryan, I do want to move on to what we think a Gerad Parker offense is going to look like. Now, how do we know what a Gerad Parker offense is going to look like? Well, we don't really have any evidence of that because, as I've said to you for over a year now, well, I don't know, about a year. I'm trying to remember when he got hired last year. It was around this time. It was close to this time because I know that if I remember correctly, I thought John McNulty left like late January. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong on that. I thought he left in late January to go to BC. Then Gerad Parker was brought in to replace him. So I think maybe a little over a year ago, as we started kind of doing some digging, is he ran somebody else's offense at West Virginia. He ran what Neil Brown wanted him to run. Yep. And there's no one that's ever been able to refute that with me, like to provide evidence to refute that with me. And so you can't, like, when we knew that Andy Ludwig was going to be the guy, and we knew that's what Marcus Green was zeroing in on, you and I just did nothing but just getting as much Utah film as we had. We watched 22 film, 21 film, 19 film. We went all the way back to 19 to watch film with Tyler Huntley. You can't really do that with Gerad Parker. It's kind of a waste of time, to be completely honest with you, because he's not bringing what he did at West Virginia over here. So we have to do some homework. We have to talk to people that know him. We have to talk to people around him. You've got to talk to as many sources as we can to say, hey, what are the things that we believe he wants to instill, wants to install? What directions does he want to take this offense? And so I think we have a much better idea now, as much of an idea as we can without seeing practices and those type of things. But I do feel that we can have a good conversation about what he believes in structurally, philosophically, and then even get a little bit into some concepts that I think we're going to see him run. And so I think that's a big thing. And I think the first thing you're going to notice with Gerad Parker is talking to different folks and doing the homework that I've been able to do. He's very much a details guy, very finer points, teaching fundamentals, teaching technique. We praised all season. Remember how we didn't have nice things to say about the blocking of the Notre Dame tight ends in the first few weeks of the season. We didn't have very nice things to say at all. And Michael Mayer's blocking was especially problematic. But as the year went on, it got better and better and better and better. The route running from the group got better and better and better and better. Michael Mayer decides not to play the bowl game, get ready for the draft. Mitchell Evans steps in with Holden Stace, and all of a sudden, guess what? Tight end play was still clutch. I think Mitchell Evans had 3 catches for 39 yards, something like that. He was open a couple other times. We talked about early in the game where Tyler threw a go route to the outside. It was incomplete. I think doing the double coverage. He had Mitchell Evans streaking down the seam to the right for what would have been a big play. So there was opportunities there. I thought the blocking in the bowl game was a lot better, and so that to me is good to see. But he's someone that understands, hey, scheme is great, but we got to teach these kids how to play. Based on conversation I've had, several conversations I've had, I do feel confident saying that with Gerad Parker, big picture, we're going to see a little scaled back from a volume, how much because like a playbook is going to be big. It has to be big. When we talk about the volume and scope of an offense, it's not about the playbook. You need answers. You need stuff that you can turn to week after week, and when you have to adjust your offense. What we're referring to is you can only take so much of your offense into a season, and you can only take so much of your offense into a game. And so that's where I come from is, look, I may have 250 different pass concepts that I can use. Now, pass concepts are involved like variations of things, different tags. Like there's all types of things. You may have 25 different things you do with Smash. It has to do with, different tags out of different formations. How much of that can I carry week to week? And what is our foundation going to be going into a season? Okay, we're going to run these concepts pretty regularly. This is what we believe in. And then each week you're going to carry extra stuff that fits what you want to do against that particular opponent. And so I think you're going to see them scale back a little bit on the amount of like scheme that they're going to take in each game and focus more on fundamentals, technique, toughness, but then also doing a lot of things with motions and shifts and things like that offensively. We may even see the tempo get pushed a little bit more at times. I'm told that Gerad Parker is not a perfect play guy, which means we'll see less of the scan. It's more of, hey, if we're going to teach this concept, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday, if we're going to teach this concept, if they show us a look that isn't favorable for this concept, then we have something to go to within that call. We don't have to change everything every single play. Right. So if we're running, I think this is the example we use, Ryan. If we're running cover three and smash into cover three, and we think it's cover three, we don't necessarily have to check the play because we have something tagged with it that works against this, that kind of thing. And so those are different concepts or different philosophies I think that we'll see from this offense. But I was told very directly that Gerad Parker believes that an offense has to be built inside out. And when I heard that, I was very happy. And I think you can buy it because, we saw how important blocking was to him as a tight ends coach. And we know that Marcus Freeman wants to be able to run the football. Gerad Parker's not getting promoted if he doesn't believe in running the football. But this is also a guy that played wide receiver in the SEC and has spent most of his career coaching wide receivers. And so I think what we're going to find is there's going to be a nice little blend of, we got to be able to run the football, but we're going to be a more receiver-centric offense as well. We're going to put more on our receivers not from a volume of play standpoint, but we're going to need you guys to make more plays. We're going to involve you more in the things that we're doing. And I think that's going to be a welcome addition certainly for that group and for Chancey Stuckey's group. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the perimeter being attacked this year than we did in 2022. Not because Tom Reese didn't want to. We've discussed this. They just didn't have the personnel to do it at quarterback and at other positions. So they went that direction. So it's going to certainly look a lot different in that regard, Ryan.
Yeah, well, and I think that, the perfect play thing was one of my favorite things that we had kind of discussed, right? It's that you have smart kids at Notre Dame, right? And to the trust that you need to have in that situation where, look, this isn't exactly what we were anticipating going against, but we still have the options to find a hole in it still, right? Like that's the biggest thing for me, man, is that, the scan stuff, again, I get it from an offensive coordinator's perspective because you're trying to find the perfect play. You're trying to find, the right call. I understood why it was a thing, but I really think that it's basically saying that my kids can adjust sometimes too, right? Like I need to give them the perfect play because they don't know how to do X, Y, and Z when they see A, B, and C, right? And I think that when you talk about the fact that there's more trust in the fact that players can make an adjustment and they can make a decision to beat something that you weren't anticipating. I think that is a great sign. I think that there's a lot of player-driven thought processes through this that I kind of look at and I say, like, there's a deep belief in what the players can do from a mental approach, from a physical approach. So it's going to be interesting to see because it's going to be a little different than what we saw last year, obviously. And I really do like the fact that the identity is not changing, right? There might be a slightly change of emphasis in certain departments, but you're still core. The beliefs that Notre Dame abides by You need to run the football, man. You need to be strong up the middle, and then you need to create explosive plays off of the run game. Like those things are core essentials and requisites to what is going to be successful at Notre Dame. So I think everything aligns, and it all sounds great on paper. Ultimately, you need to see what it looks like on the fields. But I do like the core competencies that Gerad Parker brings do seem to match with what Notre Dame has historically been very successful with.
I think some things that we'll see continue a lot, maybe even be built upon a little bit, Ryan, is another thing that I was told is from a personnel standpoint, we'll dive into the personnel, that Gerad Parker's an 11 and 12 personnel guy. I think we'll also still see some of the 21 personnel. Nobody makes 21 personnel the way that we refer to 21 personnel, a regular offense. I don't know if it can work necessarily as a regular offense. And when we refer to 21 personnel, we're referring to two tailbacks. So I actually called it 21 speed is what we called it when I was coaching. So 21 meant we're putting two backs, but one of them's a fullback. When we wanted to go, we would go 21 speed. Other people call it lightning, where you're putting two tailbacks in the game. That won't be the base offense, but I do anticipate we will still continue to see that as well. So I think we'll see that. Another thing I was told is it's going to be very, very pro style in its movement pre-snap. We'll see some under center. We'll still see a lot of shotgun. We'll still see balance in that regard. We're going to see a lot of motions and shifts that are designed much like what we saw in the past. So that part won't continue, because I think one thing that Tommy Rees did a pretty good job of at times this year, and especially later in the year, Ryan, was when he realized, hey, we can't throw the football, or at least or when he decided they weren't going to throw the football, I should say. He got real creative at times with how they used motions and shifts in the run game. And the Clemson game to me was a clinic on how to use motions and shifts and personnel to add extra gaps into your run game and really go after a team that's even trying to play the run. It was an absolute clinic. Now, we didn't always see that, but when he was on, it was on. And I think we'll still see a lot of that. We'll still see a lot of movement, and not every single play, but we're going to see shifts from tight ends, motions. I think that, when you're a coach who likes to use RPOs, it's another aspect of this offense, is we're going to see a lot more RPO from this offense relative to last year. Doesn't mean they're going to run an RPO, tag an RPO with every single play, right? So like, Ryan, if I'm running an outside zone, I don't want to run an RPO to that side. I need the receivers to that side blocking. I may tag an RPO backside and just pull and throw a quick hitch or a quick out, but I need guys blocking. I need my slot receiver a lot of times heading downfield to cut off that deep safety in case we do get a vertical crease, right? So there's some concepts you don't necessarily want to have everybody running RPOs with. Counters are another one of those. I don't want to run a RPO to the counter side. I'll run one backside, but I can't run it to the counter side. So I'm not one of those people that's like just tagging an RPO with everything. But we're going to see a lot more usage of the RPO from week to week than we have in the past. That is something I'm quite confident in, and what we're going to see, Ryan. And I think it's going to look a little different. I mean, we'll see some of the Sark stuff. We'll see the bubbles. We'll see the nows. We're going to see some, but we're going to see them run true RPOs, Ryan, like true pro style RPOs, which means throwing off second level defenders vertically, not just for the looks and the bubbles, the nows and the bubbles. It's not just going to be that. It's not just going to be banging a quick, open boundary window opening versus soft corner, bang the hitch, bang the quick out. We'll see some of that, but we're going to see some true downfield, like, second level defender RPO reads this year, I believe, as well. And I think having a quarterback like Sam Hartman is important. But the other thing too is Tyler Buchner has to be in an RPO offense, in my opinion. Like, his game is limited if he's not in an RPO offense, because he brings such a running threat to the table. So whether you've got a veteran, smart quarterback like Sam Hartman or a dual threat guy like Tyler Buchner, the RPO game is a tremendous benefit to quarterbacks. It's going to create more efficiency. It's going to create better, I think, first and second down efficiency, especially, Ryan. It's going to make it very harder for teams to really load the box up if they can really, truly develop a good, effective, not overly complex, because you don't want too much thinking. That's how turnovers happen. But a much more detailed RPO system is going to really be a benefit to the run game and not put as much on the line to have to block 7, 8, 9 guys every time like we saw last year. If they ran RPOs effectively against Stanford, they'd have won by 3 touchdowns because Stanford was just crowding the box. And so I think that's going to be an important part to this too. That's going to really help the quarterbacks, but it's going to really help the run game a lot, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking that from a linebacker perspective for a second, right? I hate RPOs, man. I hate RPOs. I hate motion, and I hate shifts. I hate all those things. Why do we do that, folks? Why do we do all that stuff? It's to make linebackers look stupid. It makes second-level defenders wrong. That's why you're running RPOs. That's why you're running trades. That's why you're motioning across. It's eye candy. That's all it is for linebackers, right? You're trying to make them guess wrong. You're trying to make them overreact to a movement. That's what RPOs and that's what those motions and pre-snap movement, that's what it dictates. And you're trying to get a linebacker out of position, whether it's in the run or the pass game. So I respect it, man. I respect it, though, from an offensive perspective, because how the game is played today, man, where you're trying to just get guys in space so easily and manufacture space, make those dumb linebackers look stupid. I mean, honestly, as a former dumb linebacker, make them look stupid, make them guess wrong, and throw it where they ain't. That's basically where it comes down to, man.
Right.
Make the game easy. That's what RPOs are built off of. That's what motion's built off of. It's making the game easy. You're trying to make the opposition guess wrong, and when they guess wrong, you take advantage of them. So I love it. We wanted more of that this year. We wanted more of that. We got more motion, like you said, down the stretch of the season. That was great. Got some more trading down the end of the season. That's great. We never got the RPOs enough, though. Never got enough of that.
Yeah.
Not enough. There were some, but there was not enough, in my opinion. So those things make the game easier for your offense. It makes quarterback reads easier. It makes running back reads through the first to second level easier. Make the game easy. That's what it's predicated on.
The benefit to RPO, I love how you brought it up from a defensive player standpoint, Ryan. Like, you hate it because you're always having to think. You're always having to move. You're always having to, okay, am I going here? Am I going there? Anytime you can create indecision or even a split second of indecision in a defensive player, it gives me a chance to hurt you bad. What it also does, Ryan, as an offense, is it makes it very hard for you to out leverage us or to have leverage with us and to have numbers in the box. It's very hard to do both. You have to have great talent at that point in time. But the RPO game, especially if you're running it effectively, where you're running it for width and you can throw behind it, because if it's just width, if you're just running nows and bubbles, you can have guys fly downhill and try to blow that stuff up. And if you have a cornerback like Cam Hart, like Clemson learned this. Clemson runs a lot of RPOs. And they tried to RPO Notre Dame to death in that game. And Cam Hart and Benjamin Morris, and especially Cam Hart, he was great in this area. But they were just coming up and blowing it up. And just like, there's nothing they could do about it. Well, my guys are just better than your guys. And it forced him to throw the ball down the field. And DJ's just not a real accurate player throwing the ball down the field. What made Alabama's RPO so hard to defend in 2020, beyond just they had great players, was they were hurting Notre Dame with the perimeter stuff, the now screens and getting the leverage. But then once Notre Dame would start out leveraging this way, they're throwing those glance routes kind of back inside off an RPO. And so you're starting to think, okay, we're going to defend the run game this way with our box and our safeties. And then we're going to defend the RPOs this way with our rover and our corners. But which works actually really well if you're a team that's just a perimeter oriented, you're just banging outs, bubbles, and now screens, right? But if you're a team that's running RPOs where you're throwing maybe glances or slants, or you're able to even maybe take I've seen some teams bang some quick posts. Notre Dame did that a little bit in 2017, Ryan, if you remember, is they would run their inside zone, and if that back safety came downside, Brandon Wimbush would pull it and just bang it. Some people call it a quick post, deep slant, same concept. It's not a full post. It's not as deep as a regular post. It's not as quick as a slant. Some people teach their glance bases. Sometimes that's just an extension of the glance. You've got to get behind that safety with your depth. And so, but we've seen that before. So I think when you do that, Ryan, it makes it a lot harder to come here with your run game and there with your RPO defense. And I think those are the things that RPOs do. It takes work. It's not something you can just do. You can just put in a week and you're banging RPOs. It's something that takes work, and it's something that has to be a part of who you are from day one.
Sure.
You have to work on it from day one. The quarterbacks need reads on it day one. The receivers need work on it day one. And I think when you get to that, it's a really great asset. Really great asset.
Are you dreaming of Tobias Merriweather and Deion Colesy on like those glance RPOs,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
just working down the seam? Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And also like getting Lorenzo some touches in space.
Yep.
I think especially depending on some looks, just kind of banging those little quick. I mean, it's almost like a hot pass to tight ends and Jaden Thomas. Yeah, and then doing stuff out of 21 personnel where you're throwing now screens out there to Chris Tyree. So there's a lot of things you can do with it that if you coach it right and you really work on it like you work on everything else, it's got to be a staple of who you are. You have RPO drills every day. You have RPOs built into every team period, run period that you do. Then, yeah, I think those things can be a big part of what you do offensively and really can help take this Notre Dame offense to another level. So I do expect that to be more a part of what we're going to do. Pass game wise, Ryan, specific concepts. I don't think that what they're going to do schematically is going to change a ton in the pass game. I think what we're going to see is more play action from the gun and under center. And part of that's RPO. Now, a lot of times people say, well, that was an RPO play. No, it wasn't. That was a play action. You can tell by the way the line's blocking. And I think you have to have both. You can't just – I think there's a belief with some that you don't really need RPO or you don't really need play action if you have RPOs. I don't agree with that. I think you also need play action to go with that as well, especially the play action allows you to attack it even further down the field. I think we'll see some of that. Obviously, the tight end pass game is going to be a big part of it. But I don't think the schemes are going to change a ton. And I don't know if I'm comfortable enough to get into the wrinkles that they're going to do in the pass game at this point. I need to let Coach Goduli and Coach Parker kind of get together and let's see what they do in the spring. But in a lot of ways, Ryan, the schemes aren't going to change a ton. The concepts aren't going to change a ton. I think we'll just see a little bit more movement from the quarterback, a little bit more play action from the quarterback than maybe we saw this past season, like true play action, not just like the flash fake to try to. Because sometimes you'll call play. I've seen people say, "Why do they run play action on 3rd and 15?" Well, it's not real play action. It's just they need the scheme that they need blocking wise. They can only get to with this play action call. So you'll see like just a little. It's just kind of force the habit of the quarterback, and then he runs it because that's just kind of what they need to do to get there. So you'll see that at times too. But from teams, I don't know if like we'll see that from Notre Dame. But I think that pass game wise, that's one thing I'm really much looking forward to seeing, Ryan, is kind of what are some of the concepts they really want to harp on. Do they like, here's the thing. I want to see more quick game. Now, the reason you couldn't run a lot of quick game last year, Ryan, is because people were just coming up and pressing all game. And there was no quick game. Weren't a ton of quick game opportunities last year. So I want to see more quick game, but that can only come by being able to beat teams down the field. That's going to be a big part. This team is going to have to establish the ability to throw the ball down the field. Now, how's Gerad Parker going to get there? That I don't know. That I don't have an answer for. But we'll have to find out. But that's going to be a key.
Yep.
Let's talk run game, Ryan. This is an area where I feel a lot more confident in knowing what Gerad Parker likes to do. So the concepts, Ryan, are not going to change in the run game. We're going to see inside zone. We're going to see outside zone. We're going to see counter. We're going to see duo, and we're going to see some draws, right? So the emphasis, I think, is going to change. I think we're going to see inside zone be used a little bit more than it was this year. You and I talked a lot last year, Ryan. If you, as a coach, can effectively use inside zone and duo together, that makes your run game really hard to stop. Because duo, you're playing vertical to the bounce. Right? Yep. Inside zone, you're playing vertical insertion to the cutback. And in a lot of ways, Ryan, there's similarities to what it does, but it really impacts the defense differently. And we saw it last year that when in the games where Tommy Rees used both of those concepts, the run game was really hard to stop. And we saw that in a great example is the bowl game. Duo, they used duo and inside zone. Duo didn't work a ton, Ryan, because South Carolina was playing it. But when they ran inside zone, which looks a lot like duo from a running back standpoint, the first run, Chris Tyree was cutting it back. Audric was cutting it back. They started bouncing. And then all of a sudden later in the game, duo starts working a lot more now. I think the touchdown run to Logan Diggs, I believe, was an inside zone run, split zone run, if I remember correctly, Ryan. So they mixed it up a lot more effectively. You had counters in that game. I think we'll see a game plan that looks a lot more like that than what we saw most of the season. And I also think that we're going to see, from conversations I had yesterday, we're going to see that I think this staff understands, and Gerad Parker understands, we can't just be a tackle-to-tackle run game. We have to be able to attack the perimeter with our run game as well. And so I think we'll see them try to get back to running more stretch, outside zone type of stuff as well, as long with inside zone, and stretch is outside zone. But inside zone, duo, counter, and outside zone, along with some draw stuff, I think is really going to be the meat and potatoes of what the run game is going to be. So I think we're going to see a lot more balance in that regard, Ryan, which I know you and I are, if that comes to fruition, are going to be very happy dudes.
I mean, how many weeks in a row did we talk about diversity, right? Diversifying the run game a little bit. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And it just makes so much sense, man, because like everything has a counter off of it, right? And to your point, and it's 100%, is that, again, I'm thinking about it from a defensive perspective. If I'm a linebacker or a safety coming down and I'm looking at the line, right? What's the line doing? Well, to the naked eye, duo and zone look very similar from those steps, right? Like there's a different foundation on the backside comparative, right? But you're looking at it, you're like, okay, that looks like a zone step to me, right? Like I'm watching, the running zone. But then all of a sudden, because if I'm a linebacker or a safety, most people read the line to the running back, right? They don't usually just read flow anymore because that's kind of dumb, right? They let the offensive lineman show where they're going to. And if that case, I'm not really focusing on the track of the running back, right? Are they getting a little more downhill? Are they taking a little bit more of a 45-degree step out of their stance? I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at the line, and then I'm reacting based upon what it looks like. Well, if I'm reading something and I'm not sure if it's zone or if it's duo, then the bounce or the progression of that run, the track completely changes. So now instead of staying firm backside as a weak side linebacker, maybe waiting for a zone, then all of a sudden it hits front side as based upon a duo run. And you're just like, I'm out of position, right? You're getting guys out of position and you're making yourself less predictable. That was my biggest, I want to pick the word right. That was my biggest annoyance off of the 2022 season, was that the run game at times got incredibly predictable, man. Incredibly predictable. And again, you're making the defense, you're making it easier for them. Why am I making it easy for those guys? I want them to be confused. I want to get them out of position. I don't want to make it easy for them. I don't want them to know I'm running duo right now. I don't want them to know I'm running inside zone, outside zone, whatever it is. I want to make them pick wrong. And when they do, that's when you get out leveraged. That's when you give up a gap. That's when you're not patient enough on the backside, and then inside zone breaks back to the backside A, backside B, and then he's out the gate, right? That's when that stuff happens. So diversity to run game, please. I will clap every single game. Please give me more diversity, because you have the dudes. You have Audric Estime. You have Logan Diggs. You have Chris Tyree. Different skill sets. Let's use those different skill sets more appropriately. That's what I don't think we saw enough in 2022.
And we saw that in the inconsistency of the results, Ryan. I mean, when teams could get a read on duo, there was not a lot of answers because you didn't have a quarterback that could hurt teams. So it was one of the frustrations is, you'd see a game like Clemson and you're just absolutely obliterating one of the best front sevens in college football. And there's not a dang thing they can do about it. And then you got the very next week and you can't run on Navy. And it was just like, because Navy had answers for duo and there was nothing. I mean, there was so many things, quick pitch outside. I mean, there were so many different things they could have done to hurt what Navy was doing, and they just chose not to do it. Now, there were some things they did pass game second half that if the quarterback gets the ball out, that stuff would have worked. I mean, we've said that. But it's just like the fact that you can't get your run game going against Navy. And yes, I get the Navy had a good run defense and all, but you shouldn't run for 69 yards against Navy. I don't care how good their run defense is. It's flipping Navy. And that was kind of the thing that would just get to me at times last year, was just like, man, when it was on, boy, it was a thing of beauty. But when it wasn't, or teams had answers for it, like USC just said, we're going to load the box and make you beat us throwing the football. And Notre Dame didn't have enough answers for it.
Brian, I mean, just comparing two games, you cannot run for 260 against Clemson and then run for 69 against Navy. You can't have that wide of a gap, man. That can't be. That can't be. Yeah. I think that's like a microcosm of the issues for the offense, right? You're right. When it was really good, it was really good, man. When it was bad, though, it was very bad. And that's you just can't have that too much of a gap in that type of performance.
Yep. So, Ryan, I think when we look at the run game, that's obviously where I feel Notre Dame is now. I think what that is going to allow us to do is to say we can start when we hear a name about an offensive line coach, he needs to have that kind of background, in my opinion. So if you hear an offensive line coach, he's been an air raid pin and pull guy his whole career, that's not going to be the guy, right? That's not a bad thing. I mean, Bill Bedenball's been a pin and pull guy most of his career, and he's excellent at it, right? It's just that's just not the scheme fit for Notre Dame. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from on that. So I feel like we have a pretty good idea, at least from a foundational standpoint, what a Gerad Parker offense is going to be. And I think those are things that I mean, again, they're going to be foundational things. Now they have to say, okay, what are the particulars going to look like? And those are some things we really won't know until we get to the fall. Yes. Now we'll see the foundational past concepts more this spring. We'll see some of that stuff. But as far as, okay, the spring is always where you should lay the foundation. And I've never liked coaches that just say, hey, we're getting everything in the spring. Why? Get your foundation in. Teach kids how to play the game. Get your foundational concepts and fundamentals and work in. And then you get a feel for what you have talent-wise. And then you spend this offseason, this summer, late spring and early summer period, saying, okay, well, now we're gonna tailor these things to that. We've got our foundation laid. Now we're going to tailor to some things that we think can really work with these guys and the unique talent that we have. And so I think that's what I'm hoping to see from them this spring. So we'll see a foundation laid this spring, and then, of course, we'll see it built upon in the fall. So it's going to be a learning process for all of us as far as some of the specifics of what they do. We can tell you we're going to see inside zone, outside zone, a.k.a. stretch. So for me, Ryan, when I say outside zone and stretch is two different things, for me it is, but it's the same blocking concept. When I talk outside zone, it's more of a perpendicular, or I say parallel handoff.
Parallel. Yeah.
So where it's like, I'm in the shotgun and I got a back next to me and we're going here. The blocking's the same, but he's working, sort of parallel to the line until he gets his insertion point. Think Denver Broncos with Terrell Davis. They would do that a ton off toss.
Wide zone.
Yeah. Yep. And they would do it off toss, and Terrell would just kind of work laterally until he saw us cutting, and bam, he'd hit his cut. Stretch is more of a 45-degree downhill run, same blocking scheme. The running back is going to kind of track it a little bit differently off of that, where outside zone, he's kind of looking for an insertion point to bounce. He's thinking, stretch, bam, I got my vertical point. The stretch is more of a get on the inside hip of that tight end, if that's whatever the aiming point is. That's what we taught, Ryan. Other people teach outside hip of the tackle. I mean, people teach it differently. I was an inside hip of the tight end guy. But if you're going to get on the inside hip of the tight end, you stay on that path until you're ready to make your move. And so it's same blocking scheme. It's just the technique is different for the back, and how you influence the defense is different. So I always called it kind of two different things so people could understand it. It's still outside zone. And really the only difference was for the running back was if you're in gun, you're working parallel. If it's pistol or under center, you're working downhill. I mean, you didn't even have to tag it. Some people will tag it. We never did. It was just you knew from where the quarterback was. If you're under center, this is what we're doing. If you're in offset, this is what we're doing. And then it was up to us to call it to get the look that we wanted. But so it's not technically two plays. It's one play. It just attacks it differently. So inside zone, outside zone counter duo is what we're going to see. What we don't know is what are the looks that they're going to like to run those out of. Is it 11? What do they like to run out of 11? What do they like to run out of 12? Those things I don't know. Do they like to run to open side? Do they like to run to close side? Are they an inside zone to the wide technique or an inside zone to the tight technique? Those are all answers that I don't have right now. And we won't really have those till we get to the fall. But we at least have a foundation of, okay, this is the concepts run game wise that I think we're going to see. This is the philosophy that I think we're going to see in regard to the balance of the run game. And I think that's a positive, something I'm encouraged by. And I've come to develop a great appreciation for duo over the last year, Ryan. But it's like with anything, any good thing can be, overused, and it has to have balance.
Too much is going to make you sick, man. That's just what it comes down to. You eat something too much, you're going to get tired of it. That's just kind of where we are with it.
Yep, absolutely. So that's going to do it for this portion of the show, Ryan. I do want to address this situation that people keep talking about because we addressed at the beginning, okay? And we'll address it now. So everybody listen. Do not be naive. Please don't be naive. Don't be that guy that hears one thing, but because someone that you like and support says something different, that you just believe that. Use common sense. Be smart about this. And you know what I'm referring to, Ryan? I'm referring to this new spin coming out of Notre Dame that people are just begging to believe. TJ Stolika brings it up.
ESPN. It's from ESPN,
right.
though. It's got to be
Who
true.
Also reported originally what we reported because that's the truth. It says that's actually not it. It was this one from TJ. It was, Brian, you should address the On3 article I sent you last night. People starting to run with it. I didn't necessarily read the article. I just saw the main topic. I don't read On3. I don't have a membership to On3. I heard what Heather Dinich said on Paul Feinbaum's show. And folks, if that was the reality of how it happened, there would have been no time for what we reported and what Pete Thamel reported and what everybody reported at the beginning to gain oxygen. It would not have gone 2 to 3 whole days where that would have gained oxygen if what actually happened is what was said yesterday by Heather Dinich. Okay, that is nothing but PR. Nothing but PR. I am 100% certain that what we reported happened, that Notre Dame balked. Now, am I completely eliminating the notion that Notre Dame might have gone back after getting pressure from donors and from just the overall embarrassment getting called out and then try to say, oh, well, hey, we'll pay it now? Maybe they did that. But by that point in time, it was over. Marcus Freeman had already moved on. And if they did that, Ryan, it was to save face. When that got out and everything leaked out, there's no way Andy Ludwig is now coming back to Notre Dame at that point in time. No way. When that got out. And it was nothing more than you're reacting to, you got crushed by your donor class, by the media, by fans for incompetence. And you're trying to save face. That's what's being reported now. Now, look, there's going to be Notre Dame fans that eat that up. And I've already seen it. I don't care. But what I'm telling you is it's nothing but spin.
Yep.
And I know it's spin because if it wasn't spin, it would have come out sooner.
Days ago. Right.
It would not have come out over 2 days after all that stuff came out. Yes. I promise you that. And here's the other thing. Here's what I also know. We went hard on them for this. Hard. I promise you, if our facts were wrong, we would have got phone calls saying, you guys are wrong. That's not what we got. We got calls confirming it. And if y'all think I'm going to run with something and I'm going to allow people that work for me to go that hard on Notre Dame, you better darn sure believe there's not a shadow of doubt in my mind that what we're reporting is exactly what happened. So you can believe the spin if you want, but that's exactly what it is. It's BS. If Notre Dame tried to go back, it was already after that it had gone down and it was not happening, and Marcus Freeman was moving forward. This is nothing but a CYA situation. Ron Paulus got embarrassed. And Jack Swarbrick, who also got embarrassed because of the people he put in charge to run the situation, dropped the ball. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so if you want to believe the spin, God bless you. I get it. But that's all it is. It's spin. And I like Heather Dinich. And I think she's a quality college football reporter, but no one's infallible, and she's being used. She's being played in this situation. And I understand there's going to be some people that are going to buy that because there's people that don't want to believe that Notre Dame would do something like that. But even what they're saying is true is still bad. Even if what she said is true, and it's not, that's still bad. You balked at the amount. You did not know what the amount was. You got called your pants down. You said no to that amount. Then later, you went back and said, okay, we'll pay it now. But Andy Ludwig said, thanks, but no thanks. That's worse to me. That's what makes this even dumber, is your attempt at spin actually makes you look worse. Like, that they think this is actually a good angle to take is nonsense. But people are eating it up. People are eating it up. Is this true? No, it's not true. And if it was true, you'd have known immediately. It took them some time to say, what are we going to say? What are we going to report? What are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? If I'll tell you this right now, if you reported something about me, Ryan, and I knew it was just flat out wasn't true, and if I was at Notre Dame doing that, I would have darn sure been on the phone with the people accusing me of that. And I said, hey, I don't know what you're hearing, but that's flat out not true. Flat out not true. But I've talked to enough people very close to this situation to know that that's not how it went down. Not how it went down. But now Notre Dame is out there trying to play CYA. That's what's happening right now. Ron Paulus is playing CYA. And people covering for Ron Paulus and Jack Swarbrick, because let me just tell you, they caught hell from the donor class and the fan base for what happened.
As they should have.
It does not go on as long as it went on. That beating that they took does not go on as long as it goes on if it wasn't how it went down. That's called, we need time to figure out our take on this and how we're going to spend this. So you can believe it if you want, but this isn't the place where we do that. We don't do the spin game here. We don't do the let's protect Notre Dame thing here. They make enough money, they can protect themselves. I would just wish that if they were going to do spin, they would do spin that didn't make them look as equally stupid as they already looked before. Like, think about this. That's their angle. Well, yep. No. We went back later and said we were later willing to pay the amount. How were you not prepared to play that amount at the time? How did you not know that was the amount at the time? How did you not know that the buyout was going to be a problem on Saturday and Sunday? How did you not know that? How did you not know that?
There's just too many holes in the argument, right? Like, it all comes back to everyone knows you're lying. You know, Brian, it's like my wife coming up to me and saying, don't forget to take the trash out today. And then I forget to take the trash out, but I still put it back to the curb later after everybody's already gone. And then she comes home and she's like, wait, why is the trash not taken out? I don't know, honey. They just didn't stop at our house, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. They went to everyone else's house, but they didn't go to ours for some reason. Exactly. But I swear I put it out there.
Stupid, yeah.
You know, and so that's the thing for me is, like, I would have more respect for them if they just said, you know what, that's on us. We didn't do what we needed to do. That's on us. I would actually have more respect for them if they did that. Hey, drop the ball, won't happen again. We're going to make sure, hey, Marcus, we're going to fix this. You tell me whatever offensive line coach you need, and we'll make it happen. I don't care how much it costs. Right? But instead, they're doing this. No. We went back, and it was Andy Ludwig that had cold feet. Cold feet? What are you talking about, cold feet? It's no, you embarrassed yourselves. And if I'm Andy Ludwig and I'm seeing how Notre Dame handled this, I don't want to work for those people. Right? Why would I want to go to that? They can't even get this simple thing right. Andy Ludwig's done this a lot. He's been going from job to job for a long time. This is ridiculous where this kind of got into it. So they can play CYA all they want. I'm not buying it, because the people that I talk to, and it's several people, I trust them a whole lot more than I trust Ron Paulus and Jack Swarbrick and whoever they're using to spin this narrative, flat out. Yeah. So that's my answer to that. I wasn't planning on addressing that today because honestly, I just didn't care. I assumed that everyone would see through that and ignore it. I'm shocked at how many people are buying this, to be completely honest with you. Shocked.
A lot are too, man. It's disgusting on Twitter right now. A lot are buying it.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, the ignorant responses that you get about it are just like, you really are clowning yourself right now. You really are clowning yourself right now. Like, you're going to go hard on this direction. Well, you look kind of stupid. And so just let them talk. But it's false. It's false. And so here's the thing. You're telling me that it took, when did Pete Thamel make his report? Let me try to find Pete.
It was Monday night. Wasn't it Monday night?
I'm going to try to find my report. So find it. So it's Pete Thamel put it out. Let's see the Notre Dame thing. So we got would that be the 12th, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So here we go. So we got Pete Thamel. Let's go through his Twitter thing now. So Pete Thamel, let's see here. So that'd be the 13th. So the 15th was Wednesday. So 13th was Monday, right?
13th was
16, 15,
Monday. Yep.
So Monday. So
Yep.
Monday, he puts it out. He says his buyout proved an obstacle. And Utah offensive coordinator Andy Ludwig is staying at Utah. His buyout proved an obstacle in discussions with Notre Dame. Pete Thamel, very trusted source, got that. We then did our digging. So I didn't confirm Pete Thamel's report. I didn't actually believe his report when it first came out. I thought he got bad information. It's like, there's no way Notre Dame is this stupid. Or there's no way this is accurate. So we did our digging and talked to our sources, very good sources. And you look at it and said, okay, this happened. And then we did our show that night. And then we got even more confirmation after the show and the next day. It's not until Wednesday on Paul Feinbaum's show that Heather Dinich comes out with this saying, no, Notre Dame circled back. I believe this is what she said. I didn't listen to it. Notre Dame circled back, and they were then willing to meet the demands, but Andy Ludwig got cold feet, basically. Correct? 2 days later, that comes out. Y'all, if Jack Swarbrick and Ron Paulus knew what we were saying on Monday and all day Tuesday was fake, do you really think they'd wait until Wednesday and use Heather Dinich to do it? Or would they be talking to Notre Dame people and saying, hey guys, this is not how it happened? It does not take me 2 days to figure out that what you're reporting about me is wrong. I promise you that. And I promise you Notre Dame is very well aware that they were getting hammered for this immediately. This is nothing more than CYA. So if you want to kind of go in there and to believe it and buy it, you have that right. It's a free country. You can believe whatever nonsensical thing you want to believe. Okay? I'm just telling you, you're believing something that's not the truth. And that's the fact. And that's where we're going to leave it. So I know what happened. And I know how it went. And I know what the response was Monday night and Tuesday from Marcus Freeman and how he went about his business. We saw it. He immediately started turning to Gerad Parker, right? And then you start hearing these things, well, it's not all done yet. It's not all over with. That starts coming out like Tuesday night. And trust me, y'all, that's not how it went down. So people are going to believe what they're going to believe, Ryan, right? We learned this long time ago. We're not changing many people's minds, but I'm telling you there's the truth and then there's the spin. And you can believe whatever you want to believe.
Great comment here from Larry Friedel, who just said, F spin, let's win. I love that, Larry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of get that. I wanted to get that out so people could hear it be addressed.
Yep.
And I don't really feel like talking about it anymore. So I'm not even a little bit backing down from my initial report and initial feelings and initially what we said, because I know what happened. And they're blaming the agent. They're blaming this person, that person. They dropped the ball. Simple as that. They dropped the ball. And now Notre Dame's moving forward. And I'm moving forward. So we won't be spin pawns. I'll give them credit. They haven't tried to reach out to us and ask us to change our story. I think they're at least smart enough to know that would not be a good idea. That would be a very bad idea. So that's where we're at. So that's going to do it for this portion of the show. We're going to do a mailbag next, Ryan, and people have a lot of things to get into that they want to ask. I'm ready to put this behind us because Andy Ludwig's not coming. That's the end game of this. They have already kind of come out, or they've come out. They've got their new offensive coordinator. They've got their new quarterbacks coach. We're moving forward, and that's where we're going to be. So we're going to do a mailbag next, Ryan. But before we get to the mailbag, folks, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. If you're listening via podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. And make sure you are signed up for or subscribe to the CFB Nation channel as well on YouTube and podcast. And of course, make sure you're signed up to the message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. It is mailbag time, Mr. Robertson. We have a lot of mailbag questions and comments here, so I want to rock and get right into these. Bailey Brad with a super chat. Thank you very much, Bailey Brad.
And he says, Gino Goduli seems like such a good hire. The more I learn, think he will kill it on the trail. I believe that as well.
Yep. I'm optimistic. Obviously, any new hire, I don't care how good a guy was or at a previous stop, there's always okay, but can he do that here notion to it, right? But yes, I'm optimistic, very optimistic. Tyler Smith, when is the Freeman versus Fickle boxing match?
Ooh.
Very well played. I like that. I dig that.
Taking his guy, man.
That's
taking
right.
His guy.
That's
I
right.
love it.
We have a super chat from Joe Papiti. Joe, thank you very much.
In the end, we have a quarterback coach and a good one at that, who we have been clamoring for, and hopefully Gino G can be a bit of a mentor to Gerad Parker.
Yep.
I don't know about a mentor. I would say, I mean, Joe, for me, it's another great resource, right?
Yeah.
Like you have another great perspective and resource around you. Like that's kind of because, I mean, it's not like Gino called the offense for 1 year at Cincinnati, right? It's not like he's been doing this and, for a long stretch or whatever. Gerad Parker actually has more experience as a OC than Gino Goduli does.
I think he's a little older than Gino.
He is, because I think Jared's like 42-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, and Gino's about to turn 40. So he's older. So I wouldn't call it a mentor. I would say it's just another good set of eyes and an experienced offensive guy around you.
It's more Batman and Robin than Batman and Alfred. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not the mentor type thing. It's more of a, hey, you're my partner in this, right? Like we're doing this together, right? And you've got good ideas, I've got good ideas. I think mentor to me is more of a I'm the student, you're the master type of thing, as opposed to we're both students trying to get this thing working together to do this thing is kind of the better way I look at it, in my opinion. So we have another super chat here from Joe Papiti again. Thank you, Joe.
So one thing I know is that the administration is hoping that Marcus Freeman has a great season and erases the stink of all this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yes. Because then the spin will be, well, see, this is why we didn't need Andy Love. This is why we turned it down. But it's still BS. It's still BS.
It would still be spin because Notre Dame fans and people that have been following along, they know the truth, right? Yes. You know the truth at the end of the day.
Well, some will buy it, as we found. But those people are naive and just not really. And look, so part of me gets it, Ryan. You don't want to believe that your heroes or the people you look up to or, the team that you love and follow is that bad, that incompetent, that cheap, whatever expression you want to use. You don't want to believe that. And so I sadly, we have a bit too much of a cultish type of mentality in our country now where, I just don't want to believe that about a person. And I'm like, there's evidence. The guy's admitted it in a court of law. Yeah, but maybe he was doing it under pressure, or it's just like, there's video evidence of him. Yeah, but video evidence can be faked. It's like, okay, you're helpless. You're absolutely helpless at this point in time. I understand that. I really do. But you want to believe, no, Notre Dame wouldn't do something like that. You want to believe that, right? But the reality is they did, and that's kind of where we are. We have one last thing from Joe Papiti. One more super chat from Joe Papiti, Ryan.
Love it, Joe. And lastly, from what I see, Marcus Freeman clearly thinks the administration, especially Paulus, doesn't trust him, so he's getting people on the staff that trust him and he can trust. Agree?
Yeah.
Very much agree.
Yep.
We've talked about that, right? I mean, when you feel like there's not enough support, you need to find the support in the ways that you can. And I think that's what's working here.
This is absolutely right. Irish to the Moon with a super chat. Thank you, Irish to the Moon, very much.
Which coaches on the staff have coached in the college football playoff? Well, Gino Goduli certainly has. Marcus Freeman has. Wait, no, Marcus Freeman has not.
No, he has not. No. They went to the Peach Bowl his last year. I'm trying to remember when if Ohio State, I believe Ohio State did during. Yes, Al Washington is in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
He was on that 19 team. So Al Washington has. Mike Mickens has.
Yep.
He was on the Notre Dame 2020 team. Chris O'Leary was like an analyst for the Notre Dame 2020 playoff team. So, and I mean, I guess you could kind of say Chancey Stuckey, but he wasn't an on-field coach. So he was at Clemson, I believe, in 2018.
Good call.
No, 2019 and 2020.
Oh, so he wasn't.
But he was a graduate assistant in 19. He was a GA in 19, and then he was an offensive player development guy in 2020. So he was there on the staff those two playoff years, but he wasn't like an on-field coach because his first year as an on-field coach was at Baylor. So, but yeah, 19 and 20, he was on there. So you've got, and then Dylan McCullough wasn't in the college football playoff, but he was in the Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl championship.
So was Al Golden was in a Super Bowl too.
That's right.
Pretty recently. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've had a lot of coaches that have been in those type of situations. So yeah, good question. We have a super sticker from Driscoll's Intel Poker Face. That still gets me. I don't know if he's being complimentary, insulting, but it's funny either way. So I dig it. David Flores with a super chat. Thank you, David, very much.
Given Gerad's experience as an offensive coordinator, would it make sense to make the O-line coach the run game coordinator?
Oh, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if they want to do that, they can. I mean, look, I'm all for those titles being helpful because they help you get pay raises, but ultimately, whether it's kind of like when I say like a quarterback doesn't have to be a captain, Ryan, he's still the captain.
Yep.
It's the same thing here. The offensive line coach, if he's worth his grain of salt, is going to have a very big say in the run game, no matter what, whether he's got run game coordinator tag or not. So you need to make sure you get a guy that's very good at that, not just someone. Because, like, ideally, you want a run game, you want an offensive line coach who doesn't just know how to coach technique. He understands run scheme and blocking schemes and how to attack defenses and things like that. And there are some line coaches, Ryan, who aren't necessarily great at that. They just know how to teach. Hey, you tell me what how we're blocking it, and I'll teach them how to block.
Right.
And you'd ideally like a guy that does get that a little bit more on a deeper level, in my opinion.
And I think whether it's a new offensive line coach or it's Dylan McCullough as the running back coach or it's a combination, I do think that, again, that's another good perspective to the running game, right? Because at the end of the day, you have Gino now in the building, Coach Goduli, who I think is going to help, obviously, Gerad with the passing game more than anything, right? The ability to work that area. But if you also have just some guys, the running back coach, offensive line coach, or a combination of two that are able to give you another perspective on the run game, I think that's obviously beneficial. And Chantey Stuckey, obviously, in the passing game, too, with Gino.
Yep. There we have more super chats. We appreciate those very, very much, guys. We got one from Charlie Weiss's last belt loop.
What's up, Charlie? Congratulations again on the marriage. IB is the no spin zone. Do you see any potential recruits excited about Parker as OC? Are the donors going to hold them to the fire still or believe Jack Swarbrick?
It'll be just like what's going on here in this chat. Some will believe it, some won't. I mean, that's just simple as that. So, and we'll see what happens next time. I'll tell you this: if they want to truly recover from this, the way to do it is simple. Let Marcus Freeman know, hey, whatever you need to do to fill out your staff the rest of the way, you do. If you need us to buy out someone on your current staff, we're going to do it. If you need us to go buy out somebody else, like, we need to save face, and we need to let everybody know we support you. Because if they really do support him, then that's what they need to do.
Yep.
Will they do it? I don't know. That's a good question. But they need to let him know, hey, whatever you need, we got you, because we need to make this right. And this is true even if the spin angle that we're getting was true, even if that was true, it still needs to happen, because you have now put forth the image that you don't really support your football coach. And you're not really good at your jobs in this regard. You're just not. So they need to fix it, and the way to fix it is by actions, not words. You can spin it all you want. I don't care about that. I want to see that you've changed. I want to see that you're doing something different. Because if we're wrong, then it should manifest itself in the remaining hires as well, right, Ryan? It should manifest itself in the areas hey, you need to go out and get a rent, because we've seen this before. Yeah. We've seen them not be willing to pay top dollar and to pay buyouts to bring coaches in for much smaller than 2.8. So you can't say, well, it was an exceptional amount of money. Okay, fine. What about last year? I know for a fact there were times where Marcus Freeman went to the staff and went to the administration, said, hey, can I get this for this coach? And they were like, no, it's too much. Okay, well, how's this any different?
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to believe, no. You actually did go back and say you want to pay it. No, you didn't.
Seems practical. Seems realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Brandon Foster with a super chat. Thank you, Brandon.
Is any of your sources mentioning any candidates for the offensive line coach position?
I mean, no. I mean, it's going to be like the OC thing. You're going to hear some names come out. I know Chris Watt's going to get a look. I do believe he's going to get a look. I don't think he's the the odds-on favorite that I think some people are have said he is. At least I've been told people saying that. I don't know if they are or aren't. I don't read other people's stuff, but I was told that. And so I do think he's an option for the job. I don't know that he is the leading candidate.
Right.
My whole thing is find the guy that has the best chance to coach this line at a high level. It may be Chris Watt. I think what I would encourage people to do is don't assume because he doesn't have experience that he's not the right man for the job.
Right.
But just like I would say, just because he's a Harry Hiestand disciple doesn't mean he's the right man for the job either.
And
right?
just because he's a Notre Dame grad.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what I can say for certain, here's what I can say for certain, Ryan, that Marcus Freeman very much understands the importance of this hire. And if he hires Chris Watt, right or wrong, it's because he truly believes Chris Watt can coach this unit at a very high level. That's what that means.
Yep.
Will he be right? I don't know.
Shall see.
We'll find out. It's not a guarantee that if he goes out and hires a big name, it's going to work. Remember when Rick Trickett went to Florida State and everybody's like all fired up? Look at the job he did at West Virginia, and he did this and he did that, and he was terrible at West Virginia. Just was a bad fit, right?
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes. I mean, you're going to have some times where a coach is a really good coach somewhere, and then he goes somewhere else and it just doesn't work, and it happens, right? It happens. And now he's coaching at Jacksonville State after spending 3 years at Glenville State. You know what I mean?
Is that where Trickett is now?
Yeah, he went from LSU to West Virginia with Rich Rod to Florida State. And then after he got fired at Florida State, he went to he was his assistant head coach, run game coordinator, and O-line coach at Glenville State, which is a D2 school in West Virginia for 3 years. And then in 2021, he was hired as the offensive line coach at Jacksonville State.
Interesting.
So,
well, at least Jacksonville State's going FBS this year, so there's that.
Right. And he played at Glenville State, right? So that's the tie-in there is that. And of course he's Glenville State's in West Virginia, and he is, played at Glenville State, coached at West Virginia for a number of years. So the point is there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. But you need to find the guy that you truly believe is the best of the best that can get this unit going. And I have to believe that there's going to be a lot of really good coaches that want to work with this group. I have to believe that.
I would be very surprised if there wasn't a decent amount of suitors that would be very interested in the position, if nothing else.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised, man.
Yep.
Very surprised.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, Ryan, we got one more super chat, and then we're going to get back to the top here. So this one's from Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Says, still working my way through the Kubler-Ross again, but I've recovered enough to peek in and send my support. Keep up the great work, IB fan.
Thank you very much, Paul. We appreciate that very, very much. So we're back up here, Ryan, and we have a did we get this one from Joe Papiti? I think I missed this one. I'm sorry, Joe.
Yes, we missed this one. All I'm going to say is this. Wow. Having gone to the boards, which everyone should subscribe to. That's boards.irishbreakdown.com. Thank you for the plug there, Joe. Appreciate you. Without giving too much away, Palace needs to go. Go IB Nation. Go Irish. It's us against them.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt at all. All right, Vegas fan with a super chat here. This is more of a comment, but also asking us to comment on his comment. So
his comment is: imagine being in a relationship where you don't respect or trust your partner. I feel like that's the situation Coach Marcus Freeman is in. Agree or disagree?
So the reason I'm going to say I agree, Ryan, is because it's not just about this situation. I don't think – here's a couple things I want to dispel. I have hammered Jack Swarbrick for days, and it's not the first time I've done it. But, look, there's things I praise Jack Swarbrick for and things I'll criticize him for. But here's the thing. One thing we all have to get out of our minds is this notion that Jack Swarbrick didn't want Marcus Freeman. I've had people bring that up, Ryan, and you're taking – this negligence and turning and building it into something that it's not. Don't lose, keep your eye on the ball, right? Jack Swarbrick, and because ultimately he's responsible for all the people involved in. Like if Ron Paulus screws up, right? Jack Swarbrick's responsible for that because you're the guy that gave Ron Paulus as much authority as Ron Paulus has, even though he has zero qualifications for the job that he has right now, other than being a Notre Dame grad and playing at Notre Dame. That's the only qualifications he has for the job that he has right now. Okay. Besides that, let's not turn this into something to where now we're speaking untruths and now we're turning into conspiracy theorists and all these other kind of things, because that's when you're going to lose credibility. This notion that people have said Jack never wanted Marcus. He only hired Marcus because the fans and players wanted him. Y'all, you can in one breath say Jack doesn't care about the fans. That's why he rejected this hire. But then say he's going to reject Andy Ludwig, but hire Marcus Freeman because of fan pressure and player pressure, but then not do the same with Andy Ludwig? Like, that completely contradicts what happened here. I have told you from the beginning, from the moment that Brian Kelly left, right after Thanksgiving 2021, that Marcus Freeman was going to be someone that was going to get a legitimate look at this job. Why? Because everything that I had heard for the previous year was that Jack had a great deal of respect for Marcus Freeman. Great deal of respect. And we also heard, and I reported while because here's the thing about like listening to the national media. Remember all the ESPN people and Dennis Dodd and all those people saying Luke Fickell was the Fickell. I'm telling you, Luke Fickell. Now, did Luke Fickell interview? Yes, he interviewed for the job. Did Luke Fickell turn it down? No, because what I was told from the jump is that Marcus was the guy that Jack wanted. The only thing that was going to stop that is a bad interview from Marcus. And because that's the thing too, is you may want a guy to work out, Ryan. I've done this. I've interviewed people for jobs, and man, I hope this works out because I love this guy. Then you do an interview, like, yeah, it's just not going to work out. That's not the right fit, right? And so, but he nailed the interviews, which is why he got the job. Luke Fickell left a year later to go to Wisconsin. You really don't think he was going to come to Notre Dame? Come on, let's use some common sense, okay? Jack Swarbrick would have waited for Luke Fickell if he needed to coach the playoff. He flat out would have waited for that. I promise you that. Marcus Freeman was hired for one reason and one reason only, and that's because Jack Swarbrick thought he was the best man for the job. Simple as that. Now, does that mean he's given Marcus Freeman all the support he needs? Heck no. Because the reason I agree with this is not because I don't think that Jack Swarbrick doesn't respect Marcus Freeman or like Marcus Freeman. It's that I think, number one, Jack has put people in positions of power that should not be in positions of power. And his underlings pretty much stink at their jobs in some areas. Number one. Number two, Jack is not around enough, in my opinion, to know all the ins and outs of what's not going right at Notre Dame and some of the things that needed to be addressed. Number three, I think they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball here. They screwed up, right? And so there is a level of trust issues here with Marcus Freeman if I'm him, because yes, you wanted me to have the job, but then you went and did what you did with Tommy Rees and hired him first and then announced to the world that and let sources leak out about how if Tommy doesn't get hired. Now, I don't think Jack is the one that put those out because I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that if Tommy Rees said, I'm going to LSU, that Marcus Freeman doesn't get hired at Notre Dame. That makes no sense. Yeah. No sense. Right? And if that's true now, are you going to fire Marcus Freeman now that Tommy left to go to Alabama? It doesn't make any sense. But it was allowed to get out, and you didn't do anything about it. Right? And the way that he hired Tommy and announced the hiring of Tommy, because that's his guy, loves Tommy this, Tommy that, right? I get all that. You then undercut your coach, and Marcus Freeman knows it. Whether it's intentional or not, that's what you did. That's the result of your actions. So, yes, there is a level of trust in here. You're not doing the things you say you want to do to support us. You're not allowing me to get rid of people that I need to get rid of because they're your guys. So you're not giving me the control that you said you're going to give me. Right. And so, yeah, there's a level of lack of trust. But we need to zero in on what those areas are and not create this conspiracy theory stuff of like, well, he never wanted Coach Freeman in the first place and all that kind of stuff. It's just not true. Let's keep our eye on the ball and not get distracted by the shiny objects over here that sound good, but they're just not true. Right? Let's focus on the things that we do know are true, like how they botched the Andy Ludwig hire. And they can spin it all they want. They can put as much lipstick on that pig as they want, Ryan. It's still a pig.
Right. Well, I think, Brian, I think that there's a look, if the rumors that Notre Dame was going to match whatever offer Tommy Rees got, right? But then you come back and do the Andy Ludwig situation, I think that's more of a testament that you are willing to make things happen for your guys, right? Because you just mentioned Tommy Rees was their guy, right, at the end of the day. So I think that the separation here, and I think that you hit on it pretty perfectly, is that respect and trust are different things, right? It has nothing to do with a lack of respect. It's a trust factor, though. If I'm Marcus Freeman, and honestly, folks, this is how I would feel if I was Marcus Freeman. I would not trust right now. I mean, like, there would be a lack of trust for me. Does that mean that I think that Jack Swarbrick doesn't like me or something like that? No, that's not what that means. But there definitely is a lack of trust, in my opinion.
Sure.
There is.
Sure. My hope is that Marcus Freeman uses this as an opportunity to say, I'm just not worried about what they think about me anymore.
Yeah.
If they don't want me here, then they don't want me here. I'm going to do this my way in every single way possible. I don't know if he's doing that right now, to be honest with you. I think in some ways there's still areas where Marcus Freeman still feels that he has to kind of cater to what makes Ron Paulus and Jack Swarbrick happy. And in reality, I don't want him to care about that anymore. I don't. I want to see him go out and say, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to hire who I want to hire. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to run this program the way I want to run this program. And if you don't want me to run the program this way, then find somebody else to run the program. Because I promise you, Ryan, that if Marcus Freeman leaves at any point in time, he's going to be coveted. There's no doubt about it. So do what you got to do, right? Do what you got to do, and trust in yourself enough to say, this is going to work and we're going to win this way. And then there's nothing they'll be able to do about it. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out.
I made a mistake to look in the chat at
someone
that
just stop.
That doesn't like us, but is still listening to the show.
It's
okay.
Not even getting those people oxygen, Ryan. Let's move on to the next one. TB12 for Heisman.
Can you compare and contrast this hire, assuming it's a co-offensive coordinator or quasi-co-offensive coordinator with Gino, to Clemson hiring Jeff Scott, Tony Elliott as co-OC for Clemson in 2015?
No, I don't think it'll be like that. That was a genuine co-coordinator situation. I don't think this will be quite that. I think this is just how good staffs are supposed to work. You hire as many competent, qualified people as possible. And then you build a structure in which they work well together. I mean, I think sometimes we get too wrapped up into the co-coordinator stuff. There's always, at the end of the day, there's always going to be one guy calling plays and one guy that's the decision maker. A lot of the other stuff is just titles to kind of understand who's doing what, right? That's the reality of it. And sometimes it is a true co-coordinator situation. And then in the instance of Clemson, it was a true co-coordinator situation. But in this instance, I think it's going to be the offensive coordinator and then maybe a pass game coordinator or run game coordinator, which is some of the times the things that you need to do to get the guy the money he needs to hire a guy, right? And sometimes if a guy doesn't have that title run, he still has the same responsibilities.
For sure.
Responsibilities don't change. And that's basically where you're going to be. So
I wish I could have just like sat in the booth and just listened to Tony and Jeff kind of like go back and forth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it would have been an interesting dynamic to watch because I can't get a little.
Yeah.
I
was always told they got along well.
Yeah.
So who knows? But yeah, I was always, because I think again, Dabo was ultimately the guy that was going to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And that's something Dabo's been pretty good about, is keeping the staff like, hey, we're all working towards one goal. Right. And, I think that's one of the greatest strengths of Dabo is that part right there.
You mean Dabo, another coach that not everybody was pumped up about when he first took the job at Clemson? And
who had never been a coordinator before, much less a head coach. Yeah, that guy. Yep. John A1 with a question. Here we go, John.
What's up, John? Do you believe Marcus Freeman will be more comfortable with who's leading the offensive side of the ball to be more attentive and demanding on the defensive side of the ball?
I doubt it. I mean, I think Marcus Freeman genuinely desires to be the head coach of the entire team. If anything, I think that you're going to see Marcus Freeman even have, paying more attention to the offense now at times, because there is someone that because trying to think of how to say this without making it seem like a shot at Tom Reese, because that's not at all how I mean it. But like the way that everything went down that we talked about, it created a weird, very weird dynamic. And I think that's kind of gone now, right? I mean, I don't think that you have to worry about that as much anymore. The awkwardness of that dynamic to where, okay, I don't want to make it seem like I'm stepping on this guy's toes because I know who loves this guy and all that. Not that him and Tommy didn't work well together. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it created a very weird dynamic unnecessarily. That's not the issue anymore. That's not the issue anymore. All right, let's get to the next question from Anthony Solomon.
Anthony says, what are the offensive recruits saying about the two hires? Anthony, so I've talked to a couple players specifically in the 2024 class. And I mean, I'll use Cam Williams as an example because he was completely fine with me kind of putting his comments out there, right? So he was very excited about the proposition of having both guys, right? Because like they have a relationship with Gerad Parker. We talked about that yesterday a little bit, right? The 2024 guys know who Gerad is. I mean, I'm sure Jack Larson, I haven't gotten a chance to talk with Jack too much yet, but I'm sure Jack is very pumped about Coach Parker being the head man now on the offensive side of the football. But basically what Cam was saying was that he was, that he's happy and he thinks it's all going to work out because not only are you getting Gerad Parker, who they're familiar with, but Gino Goduli is a guy that a couple of those cats really respect because he recruited them while he was at Cincinnati. And I mean, again, his words were like something to the effect like, that's my guy, like I love Coach Gino type of thing. So I think that the fact that you have both of those guys, they have a relationship from in the building with Gerad Parker on visits and also a guy that comes from a different background, a different perspective. I think it's good. I think it is being well received so far. So we'll update guys, as far as, a little bit of a deeper understanding at boards@irishbreakdown.com. But the early returns are that I think everybody's comfortable and I think everyone's pretty happy with what's happening right now.
Yep. Let's get to the next one here from Travis Patterson. Thank you, Travis.
The question is, new to coaching search, how do you replace Coach Hiestand?
You find the best possible candidate you can. I mean, that's the reality to it. You find the best possible candidate you can that fits in with what you're trying to do offensively. And that's the key. You don't just say, well, hey, this is the best offensive line coach in the market. Let's bring him in. Well, that guy doesn't teach or coach the things that we are going to ask our offensive lineman to teach or coach. So he may not be the best fit. So it's the best coach that you can find that fits what you're trying to do. It's as simple as that. Do that, and you're going to be fine. Because again, the offensive line coach replacing Hiestand has a completely different task than Harry Hiestand had. Harry Hiestand had to start over from scratch and build that group from the ground up. He has already kind of rebuilt that. The culture's changed, the attitude has changed, all that's changed. Now your job is to take a group that has been schooled by Harry Hiestand and keep building on it. You're not rebuilding it like Coach Hiestand had to do. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But you don't replace a Harry Hiestand from the standpoint of you're not going to find someone who's just like Harry Hiestand. You're going to do something where you're just like, look, we're going to get the guy that is going to allow us to have a staff that is going to put us in a position to put a great offense on the field next year. Simple as that. And that's what you're looking to do.
Yep.
All right. It's from Coach Bent, 574.
Are there any potential changes to offensive recruiting strategy, i.e. physical tools or measurables?
Possibly. I mean, you're always going to have some change, right? When you have new coaches, even if you're running the same system, they may like different things. It's too early, I would say, Ryan, to really know what that's going to be, especially since we don't know who the O-line. Every offensive line coaches especially have kind of their little quirks of what they look for. I think those are the different things that I want to see when you look at kind of what they want. So I would say, let me see what the makeup of the staff is first. That's what I would say. Then we'll get into, okay, here's what that coach is looking for. I think those are things will have more to do with it. Yeah.
I think it'll stay relatively the same. I mean, offensive line wise, I think as long as your principles are still the same, you're going to be looking for similar things, at that point. So I think that'll stay similar. I'm interested to see what quarterback recruiting looks like. Cause again, they already have their guy for 2023 and 2024, obviously, but now that you're working to 2025, does Gino like a specific type a little bit more? Does Gerad like a specific type a little bit more? Like, I think those things are things that I'm interested in personally.
Right. And honestly, with the offense that Gino was a part of, I mean, again, when you're the quarterback's coach, you're recruiting to kind of fit the offense that you're a part of. Right. And so, happy birthday. Bye. So my wife's leaving for her birthday massage with her mom. So she's being spoiled and pampered today. So when I think that system fits kind of what they do pretty well, Ryan. If I'm going to be honest, I think the things that Notre Dame did offensively are similar to kind of the things that Notre Dame, that Cincinnati did. From a, there's a lot of carryover, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at, right? And so I think those things will fit in pretty well. I'm trying to go back and look through and see if I can find, do they not offer any quarterbacks in 2022? Because I'm trying to find it here and see. Yeah, it looks like it's just strange. I'm trying to see who they offered at quarterback in different years under Gino, and see if it gives me.
Cincinnati, you mean?
Yeah, and see if they. But apparently, they're not listing quarterbacks on any of these years as if they didn't offer any quarterbacks. So it's just kind of strange. But
it's a wise move, not offering any quarterbacks in the cycle.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. It's down at the bottom. All right. Gotcha. So I'm just kind of looking at some of the quarterbacks that they offered. So so it's at the bottom. That's weird. It's underneath everything else. So let me go down here and see who they offered in 2022. He offered Sam Horn, Taven Jackson, Brady Allen, A.J. Duffy, Cameron Edge, Holden Garner, Braden Davis, Luther Richardson, and then they offered some dual threat guys, Ja'Cory Brown, Nick Evers. So very different type of quarterbacks, but shotgun guys is kind of what they're looking for. Let's see who they offered in 2020. I want to see if they offered Drew Pine. That's what I'm curious to see, if they offered Drew Pine in 2020. Let's see here. Pro-style quarterbacks. They offered Mike Wright, Bo Allen, Mason Garcia, Michael Alemo, Ken Seals, Evan Simon, Tucker Gleason, Caleb Holstein, Evan Prater, Jeffrey Sims, Garrett Green, Gregory Spann, Kellen Brown, Demetric Crenshaw, Dustin Fletcher, Will Howard from Kansas State.
Nice.
So pretty deep offers, but shotgun guys, but some guys that are more pro-style, some guys that are more dual threat. But
that is very mixed type of quarterback that they were targeting. It is.
Yeah. Here we got some from Patrick Earwood. Thank you, Patrick.
Since Gerad Parker is a new offensive coordinator, how important is the Navy and Tennessee State's game now?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's even bigger than it was, in my opinion, Ryan, if Tom Reese would have stayed, simply because of just the optics. I mean, with Tom Reese is kind of hey, look, I don't really care what you do. You're just trying to get ready to, when you go down to NC State, you got to be ready to go. And you've got a couple games to work out all the kinks. It's almost, I mean, the pressure is going to be, Ryan. Now, it's not practical to beating NC State and Ohio State, but the pressure externally is going to be such that the expectations are you got to go out there and just rip those two teams apart. And not just get ready for NC State, but you got to look good getting ready for NC State. That's a lot of pressure to have on the first two games of the season, in my opinion. No doubt. Especially when you've got a quarterback working with new guys and new systems and all that kind of stuff. But they got to get it rolling pretty quickly, because you better be ready to go by week 3. Because a lot of people are going to focus on week 5 against Ohio State. And my whole thing is, if this offensive staff isn't ready to go, we're going to know by week 3. When they travel down to Raleigh to play NC State, because Tony Gibson's a good defensive coordinator,
yes,
right, and he's done a really nice job at NC State. So they're going to have to be on top of their game by week 3.
They still have a couple dudes coming back too. Yeah. Peyton Wilson, Shaheem Battle. They still have a couple dudes on defense too,
and that does put a lot of pressure on them in the first 2 games, Patrick. So I very fair question. Very fair question.
And I'm hoping to get down to Raleigh for the NC State game, by the way. So I would like to see a good result.
I will be there. Indy Estimate Trucking LLC.
Brian, was Freeman able to make the hires he wanted last season just to give Reese the best chance to look good and build the resume? Nod twice and blink 3 times if you cannot confirm.
Was he allowed to? So Marcus Freeman is a believer in, I want my coordinators to have a big say in who we're going to bring in, which is honestly how a head coach should be. Now, ultimately, as the head coach, you've got to make sure that you're bringing a staff that you're comfortable with as well. I will say this: Marcus Freeman did not allow Tommy Reese to recommend anyone that he wasn't comfortable with. So Chancey Stuckey, he was comfortable with. Dylan McCullough, Harry Heastan, he was comfortable with. Gerad Parker was Marcus Freeman's hire. And Tom Reese didn't want that hire. not that he didn't want that hire, but he wasn't given the option to want that hire or not. It was just that was Marcus's hire. And, talking to people, I was told that that Tommy and Gerad had a good relationship. So there wasn't like any like ill will where he took it out on him. But I think he was frustrated that I didn't have a chance to have a say in this hire. So Marcus was bringing Gerad Parker in no matter what. And the head coach always has to have that authority. But I do know that at least in one instance last year that Coach Freeman targeted a coach that he wanted to fill an assistant coach position and was not given the okay financially to make that move. So again, that's why this is why the spin thing doesn't mean a whole lot to me, because I know this has happened in the past. I know it has happened in the past. And we're not talking about with anything close to what Andy Lowe was talking about. So yeah. But that's always going to be part of it, right? There's always going to be there has to be some limits, right? You can't go out there and say, hey, I want to pay my O-line coach $2 million, my receivers coach $2 million, I'll pay my quarterbacks. Hold on a second. We do have a budget we're working with here, right? And that's the thing is like, but sometimes when something comes along and you've got a hire that you need to make, then yes, your budget is what it is. But if we're talking about buyout money and a couple $100,000 a year, then you go to your donors and your boosters and say, give me 2 days to see if I can make this work. And then you get the money, right? That's what teams do. So I think sometimes too is the administration has to have some ability to say, hey, we're not bringing that guy on because you may be comfortable with him as a football coach, but we're not comfortable with A, B, C, and D from his background because we're going to be the ones that have to deal with that backlash, right? And so I think you always have to have, because they're still the bosses, and so there's always going to be some of that. No coach gets absolute carte blanche. We'll bring in whoever we want. There would be limits to what Nick Saban could bring in. Not many, but there's some things where Nick Saban might be able to go and say, no, we're not doing that, man. We're not, that's not happening. I can't think of anything, but I'm sure there is, even in a place like Alabama. So there's always going to be some of that.
So did you nod twice or blink 3 times?
I tried not to do either one because I didn't want to. So we got a 2-parter from John Long. Remember the super chat John gave yesterday that we didn't quite understand what he was saying?
Oh yeah.
So he was able to follow up today. So I did want to get to that, Ryan.
Sure. Carry over from yesterday's super chat. Last season in some tough times, we heard some rumblings of this isn't how we used to do it, suggesting Brian Kelly's methods were better, more proven. Mailbag continued. Did this phrase come from the Notre Dame coaches or players?
It was more so from some players, and it wasn't directly like. Yes, it was more so from players and from veteran players and parents is where it came from, and you can't have that. That's the thing is, John, you can't have that. I don't believe it came from. I never heard it coming from any coaches. That doesn't mean it didn't, but I never heard it. It was never relayed to me that coaches were. Kind of, well, this is how Brian Kelly did it. There's always going to be some, well, this is how I want to do it. And I know you're the head coach, but I want to do it my way.
Sure.
There's some of that. And then as the head coach, you got to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. But it was more the player standpoint. And that can happen when you have a transition and when things don't go well. Well, this didn't happen in the past because we did it this way. And so I think there was some of that last year. Yeah, John. Yep. And we got a question from John Leahy. Thank you, John.
Do the running backs in the O-line fit a scheme the best, and is that what Parker wants to run? Sorry, can't read.
Yeah, I think that what Parker wants to run, John, run game wise, is going to be very similar to what they've already done: inside zone, outside zone, counter, duo. So they've already got guys for that. The lineman they recruited in 2022 fit that. The lineman they recruited and signed in 2023 fit that. So I think Peter Jones, who they have in the 24 class, fits that. So I think that's one of the positives, honestly, John, is there's not going to be a huge dramatic scheme shift that all of a sudden you don't have the players to execute. I think that's going to be one of the positives that we do know about Gerad Parker being promoted. There's a lot we don't know, but one of the positives we do know, Ryan, is there's definitely a carryover of, okay, there's going to be a lot of personnel is going to be similar, fits, the players' terminology is going to be the same. A lot of that stuff is going to can be just a smooth continuation, which is a positive in my opinion.
Well, I think also, I mean, you mentioned the one core competency that Parker believes in is that he wants to build from the inside out, from a running game structure, right? Well, from an offensive structure perspective. And I think that, I mean, based upon what Notre Dame just signed in the 2023 recruiting class, for instance, at offensive line, you got 5 nasty football players at offensive line, right? You have Blake Fisher, who's a 330-pound nasty dude. I think that that's one thing that Notre Dame has built their tradition on, is that they are a nasty group up front when they are at their best. And I think that that's not going to change under Coach Parker.
All right, let's get to the next one here we actually had a super chat down here from Alejandro Cornell. Thank you, Alejandro.
What's up, Alejandro? If Parker was named OC before Harry Hiestand retired, do you think he waits another year to retire?
No. I think Harry Hiestand, it didn't matter who they hired as offensive coordinator, Ryan. It didn't matter.
It was a Tommy Rees thing. It wasn't a not liking Gerad Parker or not liking whoever other candidates you're looking at, right? It had nothing to do with Andy Ludwig or anybody. It was just Tommy Rees left. That was the big reason that Harry was there.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, let's get to some more questions here. We have one from Stonador.
Mailbag, if you have it, since we're having a quarterback coach now and with Parker's promotion, I assume we will no longer have a tight end coach. Any chance this hurts with the position moving forward? No, Gerad Parker's going to coach tight ends.
Coordinators also coach positions in college.
Yes.
In the NFL, you'd have that issue, but that's not an issue in college.
It's not separated.
Right.
Usually offensive coordinators coach other positions, right? I mean, Chip Long was a tight ends coach. Tommy Rees was a quarterback coach, etc.
Right. All right, I want some Jordan Zgrabic. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm not sure if I am. All right, here we go. I guess I'll read this one, Ryan. This will be more for you. I think Ryan might have froze again. Does this hire potentially put a lot of offensive recruiting in a holding pattern, so to speak? Will kids want to see how the offense unfolds on the field first and slow some momentum? I don't think so. I think it's going to be, you're going to have to sell your vision for what they're trying to do. And I think the only holding pattern is simply going to be just making sure that everybody, once the staff is together, that everybody's on the same page. Like I think, offensive line recruiting, I don't think it's going to necessarily have to go on hold because of the fact that you need to reevaluate guys. You're going to have the same offense. So, if you like Caleb Brewer, you keep recruiting Caleb Brewer. If you like Yerby Lambert, the on hold comes simply from you don't have an offensive line coach right now. That's where the on hold comes from. Receiver, I mean, that's not going to change. Running back, you've got your guy. Tight end, you've got your guy. Quarterback, you've got your guy in the class. So I don't think it puts anything on hold. It just, you're going to keep plugging away. And now you've just got to sort of reconvince some guys of what your vision is. That's really what it's going to come down to. But it's not a holding pattern, Jordan, per se. It's just more of a, okay, you're going to have to overcome some obstacles and get on track. And there's plenty of time to do that. There's plenty of time to do that.
Sorry, StreamYard told me that my connection was unstable. My apologies.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
And we have one from Garland Dixie. Here we go.
Says, did Gerad Parker have any voice in any of the offense last year? Is he a field guy or booth guy? If these haven't been answered yet,
I imagine it's going to be he's going to be a field guy. Now that you've got a quarterback's coach, your quarterback's coach is going to most likely be up in the booth. Yes. I would imagine Gerad Parker will be down on the field. Would be most likely my thought on that one. So, and we have Irish in Ohio.
Do you guys think Marcus Freeman brings in an offensive analyst as well? I hope. I mean, I
think so.
The more support, the better. If you can make it work, in my opinion.
Absolutely. A Beefeater with a super chat or with a question here. We'll go this one.
Brian Ryan, how would you characterize the coaching talent gap between Parker and Ludwig beyond the experience difference?
I mean, I can't answer that. I have no idea.
I mean, Beefeater, like we just don't have enough. I don't have any data on Gerad Parker. I mean, the thing that made Andy Ludwig so attractive was that tangibly, I could look at what he did as an offensive coordinator for years at multiple spots and say, that's probably a very easy transition. I don't know what to expect from Gerad Parker, and I've been fully, transparent with that. I don't know what to expect from Gerad Parker. Could it be good? Yes, I believe so. Could it be underwhelming? It's possible. I don't know the answer to that. Andy Ludwig, I think that structurally speaking, based upon what we know from Coach Parker so far, I think that they believe in similar things offensively from a structure perspective. I do believe that. But I know 100%, well, not 100%. I know what to expect, though, from Andy Ludwig. I know what he likes. I've seen it on film plenty of times. I don't know what Coach Parker likes. I mean, we're talking to sources to figure out what structurally he believes in offensively. We haven't seen that, right? So I just don't think I can answer that question appropriately, unfortunately. Not yet.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Joe Medina with here we go. Brian, do you think Andy Ants will be hired by Jared? Yes, we talked about that one. You know what's going to be funny is Joe got his name right, but we have seen his name spelled about 4 different times in this chat.
Gerard, Gerald.
You had people that couldn't spell Reese correctly. This is going to be interesting to see how many times Jared's name gets.
Well, how about Gino Goduli as well?
Oh yeah. I think people are more concerned with how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I honestly wouldn't know how to spell his name unless I looked it up right now. To be honest, so
yeah,
that'll take a week or so.
we get this question a lot from John Mayernich.
Not knocking Reese, just legitimately curious. Why do people think Reese is an offensive genius? I ask this because all the evidence suggests otherwise.
Yeah. Look, we can continue to have this battle. As an offensive coordinator, Reese did things that a lot of people were impressed by, including us at times, with some of the concepts he ran and the timing of his play calls at times. Look, I know that Notre Dame fans feel a certain way about Tommy Reese. I get that. But the fact of the matter is NFL teams called him and liked him and wanted him. Nick Saban wanted him. Maybe for just a second, you might want to think that maybe they know something that you don't, right?
And at some point, Brian, not to cut you off, but if one person's calling, that could just be one opinion.
Right.
But if there's a lot of people calling, then there's probably something to that,
Yeah.
Like
I know him and Sean McVay have talked in the past about doing something together at some point in time, and the timing was never right. And look, I think Tommy Reese was not a perfect offensive coordinator by any stretch. I mean, we've talked about that. He was young. He made mistakes. There's things he needed to be better at, how he interacts with players, how he interacts with coaches, certain things he does from a game playing standpoint. But there was a lot to like as well. I think the bigger issue for me with Tom Reese, as I've said before, is the quarterback coaching part is more of a question mark for me than the coordinating part, in my opinion. And, yeah. I mean, I there's nothing I'm going to say. I mean, we've been asked this question before. There's nothing I'm going to say it's going to change anybody's mind. And honestly, I don't care to at this point in time. He's not at Notre Dame anymore. But there's a reason that coaches there's a reason Mario Cristobal tried to hire him 2 different times. There's a reason Nick Saban hired him. There's a reason NFL teams called him. The guy's really smart. Now, was he a finished product? No. But I think if you're a guy like Saban, you're thinking, boy, this guy's got some talent. If I can bring him in and harness that, then it's going to be good, because it needs some harnessing. It does. He needs some harnessing. But he's a really smart guy that when he's on his game can really just put work in on a defensive coordinator. I mean, he can. It just needed to be more consistent. That's my issue, Ryan, is the consistency of it and some of the stubbornness of it a little bit too at times. But that's part of the learning process for a guy who was 27 years old when he got hired as the offensive coordinator. Just turned 31, I believe. So yeah, it kind of comes with it. All right, we got one from Rob Thidoff. Thank you, Rob.
Ryan and Brian, with so much experience and quarterback experience for 2023, do you think coaching deficiencies may be masked, similar to Jack Cohn in 2021, masking the quarterback deficiency development this year?
Oh, I guess I don't accept the premise at this point in time, Rob. It's like, do you think the coaching deficiencies may be masked? I mean, I don't know that there will be coaching deficiencies. I don't know that there won't be. I don't know. I guess
the question is, do you think that you can get an appropriate gauge on Gerad Parker for the talent he's coming back? Is that what you're asking? I guess.
Yeah, because look, I remember watching Miami in 2001 and 2002, and you're thinking they're just winning on talent. I mean, you can see it, right? It's why I've said in the past I don't love Clemson's offense, right? It's just like, and I've said this before. Remember in going into 2021, Ryan, I said, look, y'all, Clemson is not going to be the team that they were. Now, they're still good, but I said they weren't going to be as good. Why? Because I said they won with Trevor Lawrence in spite of the coaching. You can see it. You can see how they play. You can see it where it's like, dude, that was just a sick pass. Like, I don't know what the heck he's calling here. Their dudes are better than the other team's dudes. So you can see that. So it could mask it maybe to, I think it's kind of, I don't know how to say this without sounding disrespectful, but like just fans, and if you're just like people that aren't like really doing deep dives into the team, it can certainly mask it. Certainly. But
Right.
I mean, if you know football, you're going to break the film down and be like, dude, they're winning with smoke and mirrors right now, or they're winning because the opponents aren't good, or, this won't carry over. But you can also watch a team say, boy, these guys are coached really well. And man, they're really working well together. I liked that call. I liked that game plan. They play with good fundamentals. They play physical. You can see those things. So is the talent such that they can mask the coaching? I guess I'd be willing to answer the question if we were to say, let's work with the assumption that the coaching is just solid but not great. Can Notre Dame still have a really good offense next year? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Especially if Gerad Parker goes with more of a let's simplify things a little bit, make things a little. We don't need 1 million plays. Let's go with 500,000. You know what I mean? Hypothetically, obviously hyperbolically. Sure, it can, but it won't mask it all the way to the championship, right? It'll mask it to 10-2, 11-1 potentially. We saw that in 2021, Ryan. That team was not an 11-1 team from how they were coached to play team. They were 11-1 because they just had better players than all but one of the teams they played last year in 2021. That's the reality of it. And so it'll mask it to a degree. But I also think that if the coaching is good, then the offense should be really good. That is one encouraging thing. We got a super chat here from Tales from Wville.
How does Notre Dame overcome this black eye? The basics of sales are always be closing. How could they let Ludwig get away? Ultimate vindication for Brian Kelly's messaging about lack of support, prioritization of football.
Well, see, the problem is that Notre Dame is not going to do what they need to do to overcome the black eye. They're just going to try to lie their way out of it. Somebody sent me something that somebody I respect is putting out. Now, he's just saying what he's being told, right? This is what they're telling me. And Tim Priester put something out basically saying that the administration is going to come out with a thing to donors saying they were always going to pay the amount. I can tell you with certainty that's not true. They're going to say, well, it's just miscommunication and Ludwig dragged his feet. It's just not true. And I am incredibly confident in that. So then come out with all the releases they want. And guess what? Some people are going to believe it. I've already seen people that I know and respect are already believing it. It's just false. So they're just going to basically spin their way out of it. And you know what? It's going to work with a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not with me. And I don't care what anybody says. And Ryan, you know where I got my information from, and you know it's good. And so I just don't really care what they do. And I've never really cared what they do and say. They've always tried to spin their way out of things like this. So how do they overcome the black eye? Be more organized. Put more quality people in control of situations. Do what you got to do. Spend the money you got to spend. Because here's my question at the end of the day. What is a championship worth to you? That's my question. What is a championship worth to you? So maybe if it's worth X amount to you, that you do what you need to do in this regard to go give it. And that's it. So that's where you're at. And if you don't believe it, then find another. If you don't think that my reporting is accurate, that's cool. Find another channel to watch. I don't care.
I just can't believe that, man. Like, if people don't like the content or agree or like think that whatever, just go
find
away,
another channel.
Man.
Find another channel. I'm good. I'm very comfortable by standing by what I reported. And if you don't want to believe it, I really don't care. I mean, you're entitled to it. I got no ill will towards you. Just go find another channel that's going to tell you what. Here's the deal. Do you want to be told the truth, or do you want to be told what you want to hear? If you want to get told the truth, you want to get objective, honest reporting, and you don't want to have stuff spun to you, then this is where you need. I'm not saying every other channel is not that way. I'm just saying there are channels like that. Go watch those shows. I don't care because we're gonna keep spitting truth here, right?
We have a lot of great people in the community that we
Yeah.
can rely on.
That's right.
Yeah.
So look, like at the end of the day, there are things in the past where I reported say, I got some new information and I think this is the truth. Everything I'm being told now, it's like I know who I talk to, right? And I know where it came from, and I'm very confident in what we reported. That was also reported by other competent people. Then the spin came, and now they're trying to blame Andy Ludwig, right? And so at first it was the buyout, and then this. Now it's Andy Ludwig's fault, right? It's his agent's fault. It's all spin. It's all spin. So there you go. And if you don't want to believe it, that's cool. Just go somewhere else. I'm good with that. I really am. I'm very comfortable with that. I've always been very comfortable with that. All right, so let's get to
I stopped worrying about followers a couple of years ago. So
good call.
Yeah.
Benjamin Carchi with a question here.
Does it help Coach Parker that our first couple games can help players understand the offense before we get to teams like Ohio State? Yeah, I mean, Benjamin, we talked about this a couple questions ago, right? I think that that's a great start to the season for kind of that acclimatization, that transitional period. It's because, again, Coach Parker has not called a football game in a couple years at this point, right? I mean, to begin with, just the process of calling a football game. So getting back into that flow, because that's the biggest thing about calling a football game in general, no matter what level you're at, it's about a feel thing, man. It's about repetition. It's about the flow, right? Like you need those types of things. So I think it's big for Coach Parker. I also think it's big for the offense in general because you have a new starting quarterback, potentially. You have an offense that is going to be relatively the same, but there's going to be some different wrinkles thrown in there, obviously, with a new coach. So I think that transitional period playing against a couple inferior opponents to begin the season is big time because then you're going to hit that stretch of, Ohio State and Clemson and USC. And I mean, there's a lot of games in a very tight confine of weeks. So yeah, I think that transitional period to begin with is very beneficial to the staff potentially.
Yeah. I just want to read this super chat from Chief Brody because this is exactly right. Thank you for the super chat, Chief Brody. It seems convenient they let the news breathe for a few days so all the fans could get riled up only for the real story to come out. Get real, man. Yeah, like they're going to send a letter to donors and all sorts of stuff like several days after the fact. Like, come on, man. It's nothing more than CYA and trying to protect yourself. That's all it is. Yeah. But you know why they do it, Ryan? Because they know people will believe it. That's exactly why they do it.
People will click on it too on the media side of things.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Well, I mean, like the story that I'm referring to earlier, who reported it earlier, and said Tim Priester put something out. This is what I'm being told. Here it is. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
He's not making something up. It's just what he's being told.
Exactly. Nor is he saying the people that reported the opposite are full of crap and lying. He's not saying that this is what they're saying. This is their side of the story. That's totally fine. And Tim is a reporter. He's been doing this a long time. He's got to put that out, in my opinion, because that's their statement. We do things differently here. That's fine. It's not better, not worse. It's just different. And we're more analysis than we are. Let's present the both sides of every story. There's not always two sides to a story. There's two stories per side, and there's two stories in this conversation, but there's only one truth. Like it's people say, well, that's my truth. Well, that's not a thing. Like there's the truth, right? And it either happened this way or it didn't happen that way. And you can spin it however you want. It's what it is. That's really where it is. Let's get to Brandon Plensner with a question here.
Question is, how can the move of Gerad Parker to OC possibly impact 2024 offensive recruiting positively? How can they get impact talent to buy into an offense coordinator offense they haven't seen?
Well, they do that all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it is. I mean, it's Brandon. I think that one thing that it's going to be interesting to watch offensive side of the ball from a recruiting perspective because there is going to be a perception at first. But at the end of the day, most recruits are drawn to relationships. That's a big thing. So the relationships with Coach Parker that maybe they already had intact, maybe the relationships they had with Coach Guidugli when he was, working back into the Wisconsin, side of things. Maybe it's a little bit of extra help at first with Marcus Freeman over top. All those things I think can help to ease the transition a little bit, because it is a wait and see a little bit. It is, because I think there's going to be some offensive recruits as well that want to see the product on the field. They're going to want to see it. And I understand that. I get it. I would want to see the product too. Nope. But at the end of the day, I think you have enough resources to figure it out, soften the blow, and continue moving forward and gaining momentum.
Yep, absolutely. We have a super chat here from Tyler Smith. He said it's time to hire Tim Brown as OC assistant. He's being funny there, obviously. Yeah, Tim Brown's got plenty of things to do. Plenty of things to do, man.
So, it would be nice to see him on the sideline occasionally.
That would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be a lot of fun. 99 Problems of BK ain't one.
Could Marcus Freeman hire someone like Justin Fry by offering him an assistant head coach, run game coordinator, maybe co-OC and offensive line coach? I thought I heard a while ago that he wanted to be an offensive coordinator that won't be at OSU.
Sorry, I had to drop out real quick and yell at my dogs to stop barking. Look, he could do that. I just don't know if that's where I'd want to go. This is more, so I'll say this. This is more personal preference, Ryan, here. For me, I like an offensive line coach that just wants to coach the offensive line, right? And run game. I don't want a guy that necessarily needs control or needs to be who has. It's not that I care if a guy has aspirations. It's just kind of like, when I hire you as an offensive lineman coach, I just want you to coach the offensive line. That's it, right? And that's kind of where I'm at. And so I think Justin Fry has much greater aspirations than to be just an offensive line coach. And that's totally fine. Totally fine. But I just don't know if paying him what you need to have to pay him is worth it. Like, there is a level of some guys are worth paying and some aren't. Like, there is that reality. I think, to me, Andy Ludwig is worth it. To me, Justin Fry, I don't know that he is, because I don't know if the fit's there. Like, you've already got Gino Goduli with his background, and you got Gerad Parker with his background. Now you want to bring in a guy who's like kind of co-OC, that kind of thing. That was kind of my issue a little bit with Bill Bedenbaugh, Ryan. If you're going to bring him as an O-line coach, if you're going to bring him in, he has to be the OC, right? There is the notion you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like,
yes,
some guys need, hey, you're just the receivers coach. Now you have a very important role as the receivers coach, but not everybody can be a co-OC. Right. And I think that you bring in Justin Fry, that'd be a little bit too much. And I like the titles that you're giving him, though, those are already ones he has at Ohio State. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he went to Ohio State as just the offensive line coach. If I remember correctly, he had some bigger titles.
I think he's an associate head coach or something like that. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. I mean, see if somebody says something. See, Brandon Plesner said he's already the associated coach and run game coordinator. So, yeah, that wouldn't shock me at all.
Makes sense.
Wouldn't shock me at all. All right, here we go. TJ Stalika with a question. Here we go, TJ.
Does losing Tommy Rees hurt Tyler Buckner's chances of starting even more? He was Tommy's guy.
Well, no, because he wasn't Tommy. That only matters, TJ, is if he was Tommy's guy and Tommy liked him and the kid doesn't really actually have talent. You know who he was? A lot of people's guy coming out of high school.
Yes.
He just signed with Notre Dame. So I don't think that's going to have any impact on him. I mean, look, again, he's got 3 years of eligibility left. So Sam Hartman has 1. So Tyler Buckner, if he chooses to stay, still has plenty of time to be a starting quarterback and be a very good starting quarterback at Notre Dame, maybe be a championship quarterback. And I don't know of anything in Gino Goduli's background. Like, if he can coach look, here's the deal. If you can get Desmond Ridder to be a really good college quarterback, you can get Tyler Buckner to be a really good college quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind. So I don't think it hurts him at all. Now, it may hurt him from the standpoint of he doesn't have the relationship with the coach and he doesn't want to take that chance. That's fine. I mean, maybe that might be something to consider. Hey, I'm going to leave because I don't know you and I don't want to sit behind Sam because with Coach Reese, I knew that I was going to be that next guy. With you, I don't know. I mean, maybe he feels he has to take that career move. I don't know that. I'm just saying the potential options, but I don't think that's going to be about hurting his chances. I think that just may be a risk that, something he may decide to do, but I don't think it's a situation where it hurts his chances. Tyler Buchner is a very talented quarterback. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a chance to do some really good things at Notre Dame if he stays. There's no question about it.
And I think that having a quarterback coach to just be the quarterback coach with Tyler Buchner could be huge too, Brian. I mean, honestly, because again, Tommy Rees is the quarterback coach, but he also has to have his part in, what are the offensive line doing? What are the wide receivers doing? What are the running backs doing? Game planning, practice plans, all that type of stuff. Having a quarterback coach that is just a quarterback coach, I think is big for Tyler Buchner. I think it's big for Steve Angeli. I think it's big for Kenny Minchie on campus. Like the depth of the quarterback room, I think, is going to be impacted big time for it.
Yep. Got another question here from We Are Not Marshall.
Can the guard and
the G&G OC,
gotcha.
Gerad and Gino.
Gotcha. Didn't catch that one. Can the Gerad and Gino offensive coordinator room make up a big leap on that side of the ball to make Notre Dame a playoff contender in year one?
I have no idea. And this is the thing I said yesterday. I'm willing to give Gerad Parker every opportunity to prove that he's that guy, but I don't know. I don't know that he's that guy. I believe that Notre Dame has the talent to make a playoff run next year. That I know. And it's up to them to put the pieces in place to go do it, to lead the group in a way that goes and does it. It's up to Coach Freeman to go hire the best offensive line coach he can. It's up for this staff to become one cohesive unit, take the talent they have, and charge forward. That's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. And so can they do it? I honestly, I don't know. I know that Gino was part of an offensive staff that went to a playoff the year before. Gerad Parker's never been a part of that. So, I mean, he's been a part of some good football teams, right? I mean, but never a championship team or anything like that. I mean, his, 2019, the Penn State team that he was a part of, they went 11-2 that year. It's a pretty good football team in 2019, if you remember. Lost to Minnesota by 5 when they were undefeated. They got up to number 4. They finished the year ranked 10th, beat Memphis in the Cotton Bowl, if you remember that year, beat Michigan, beat Iowa, beat Michigan State. So he's been a part of some teams like that, and but never like a championship team. And even if he was part of a championship team, he's never been the guy that necessarily led that championship run. So, I honestly couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I just know that this team has the tools to do it, and it's up to the coaches to get it done. Yeah. But look, honestly, We Are Not Marshall. Like, I could sit here and tell you I've had conversations, and I now know for a fact that Gerad Parker is good enough to lead this team to a national championship. It'd be spin. We've already established that I don't do that here. Do I think he's a very smart coach? Yes. Do I think he's a very good position coach? Yes. Do I know that the players respect him? Yes. Do we know that he grinds on the recruiting trail? Yes. Do I know that he has a philosophical system that I think can absolutely work here at high level? Yes. Can he put all those pieces together to be the leader, game planner, and play caller needed to be a championship team? I have no idea. We'll see. But there's times in the past I would have said, that guy's not going to get the job done, right? Like, boy, what a huge blow for Clemson to lose Chad Morris, man. They're going to replace him with 2 young, inexperienced guys. I don't know about that. Then they won 2 championships together. I honestly don't know. But I know the roster, the offensive staff, offensive talent is such that this team should have a championship caliber offense next year. Will they do it? I do not know. But that's the expectation for me. Ryan, anything different you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it's just unforeseen. I mean, at the end of the day, you need the talent to get to that level. So, I mean, in a vacuum, are they talented enough to do it? Yes. Do I know if the coaching staff and talents will be cohesive to the point that I would bet on it? Also, no. Like, it's just, you're just in a situation where there's too much unknown. Again, unknown could be a good thing. You just mentioned an unknown that was a good thing. The Clemson offensive coordinator situation, that was an unknown. It turned out to be very good. But there's also unknown that doesn't go well. right? So like I don't know. I don't know right now. I think the roster that Notre Dame has is very talented. I think they can contend for a playoff spot. I do. Are they going to be good enough on both sides of the ball consistently to win a national championship? I don't know. So playoff contend for a playoff spot? Yes. Contend for a championship? I just don't know. I'm not sure. I need to see it before I go way too far that way. Are we going to attack the middle of the field more from Katie Keevers?
Again, that's an unknown from based on conversations I had. I mean, it's the stuff that they're telling me they're going to run. You have to attack the middle of the field to be successful with it. So in theory, Katie, I would expect that to a degree. Look, Tommy Rees is in past years. Like I thought they did a decent job attacking the middle of the field in 2021 at time, in 2020, they didn't. In 2022, they didn't. In 2020, it made sense because Ian Book didn't like throwing over the middle of the field. He just was never comfortable throwing over the middle of the field. And Drew Pine, I don't think Tommy Rees was comfortable letting Drew Pine throw over the middle of the field. So I think there's been some quarterback limitations that kept Notre Dame from attacking the middle of the field more. And then there were certain things you couldn't really do at Jack because Jack didn't have the arm strength to attack certain parts of the middle of the field. But they attacked it a lot more than they did in previous years and this year. So I would imagine so. But that's just more in theory, Katie. I can't tell you for sure that they're going to. I have a feeling they're going to based on what the talent, like the talent that they possess, combined with the quarterbacks that they have, combined with the offense they say they're going to run. It all leads to they're gonna attack inside the numbers more. To what degree, I couldn't tell you. I really don't know. That's going to be part of the fun, right? Of this next 7-8 months, Ryan, is just kind of learning who they are, learning how they go about practice, learning all the different things that they do. Those are aspects that I look forward to. That's the fun part of doing this, is when you bring in new coaches and new players. Like I can't wait to see what Sam Hartman looks like in a Notre Dame uniform. I can't wait to see what, the next, Tyler Buckner being healthy is. I can't wait to see Braylon James with that golden helmet on and Jaden Greathouse and, see what Gerad Parker's like, and see what's the demeanor of the offense like under Gerad Parker. He's got a very different personality than Tom Rees. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's worse. It's just different. Do the players respond better to that? They respond to worse to that. Do the offensive linemen respond better than the new O-line coach, worse than the new O-line coach? That's all part of the fun of covering teams when you have the kind of turnover that you get every year in college football. And this is the one of the things that I enjoy about it, to be honest with you. But it also leaves some uncertainties of, I don't know if they're going to attack the middle of the field more. I don't know if they're going to run this as much as they have in the past. We're going to find out. And that's going to be the fun part of this whole thing.
I'll say this, based upon Sam Hartman's history, right? I don't think that he will hesitate to throw the ball wherever he's told to throw the ball. He throws with a lot of vindication. So.
Excuse me. Jimmy McGill.
Am I boring you, Brian?
No, I just didn't get a lot of sleep the last couple of nights.
Just kidding.
Jimmy McGill with a question.
Jimmy McGill says, do you see a benefit of having a quarterback coach who is focused solely on developing the quarterbacks rather than having to run an offense as well like Rees had to? Yeah, I mean, I just talked about that a couple minutes ago. Jimmy, I think it could be incredibly beneficial. If you have a really good quarterback coach that's his pure emphasis, we're talking about full development of the room at that point. You're going to spend time with Sam Hartman, obviously, because he could potentially be the guy. But we're talking about guys like Tyler Buckner. We're talking about guys like Steve Angeli, like Kenny Minchie. I think that the quarterback development should have an uptick. And it's no disrespect to Coach Rees. It's just the Gino Goduli doesn't have to do as much, help, figuring out what the offensive line's doing, figure out what the run game's doing all those types of things, managing the practice schedule, game planning. He's going to be able to focus solely on, well, not solely, but mostly on quarterback development and making that room better. So, yeah, I think it can be very beneficial.
We Are Not Marshall says, does a change at OC and potentially quarterback recharge the batteries for a player like Styles? I hope so.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
So. Really what it's going to come down to is just Lorenzo's going to have to say, you know what? I'm not happy with what I did last year. I'm better than that, and I'm going to go prove to everyone I'm better than that. That's where the battery recharge comes from. I think anytime you have a turnover on your staff the way that they did, there's always a level of re-energizing that can happen, Ryan, because it's like, hey, this coach, I was bearing the depth chart of this coach. this coach seemed to love this guy or that guy, but there's a new coach coming in, and this is my chance to show him that I'm as good or I'm better, or I'm whatever.
Clean slate. Clean slate.
There's always that's always something that kids sometimes, depending on the coach, but that's always something that most kids will really get excited about. When that's one of the positives to coaching turnover.
Yep. From Bill Walsh, the Gino hire could be huge for quarterback development going forward. Agree. Also, tight ends and wide receivers should be good. If they get an offensive line coach that can recruit and develop, this could be really good. Yeah. I mean, I mean, it could be. There's a potential for it to be, Bill. It's just, again, we have to see the finished product. We have to see how things trend. I mean, could it be? Yeah, it could be.
It's like, honestly, it's like, Bill, I'm kind of almost like purposely tamping down my excitement over it because it just of the way it'll appear. It'll just appear like, oh, you're just going along and this, I think this could be really good based on what we do know. But at the end of the day, that's all projection. It's not, I know it's going to work. It's just projection. So I'm trying to just not get too excited too early, Ryan, and just say, hey, let's wait till we get to the spring and see what it is. But yeah, I mean, look, when you start thinking about the talent on this team, Bill, you start getting excited and you say, boy, because there was question marks going into the next year on offense, no matter what, Ryan, because it was like, can Tommy Rees make the changes he needs to make to take this offense to the next level? Those were always going to be questions that were there. There's always been uncertainty on the offense. It's just now it adds a different layer to where at least with Tommy Rees, you had a baseline of at least I know he's going to do this. Now it's like, I don't know what the baseline is with this, but you also kind of get excited like, well, okay, now there are certain things that no matter who whether it's Harry Heastand, Tommy Rees, Chip Long, Mike Denbrock, whoever it's going to be, there's always going to be things that a coach does that you don't prefer if you were the guy. And that's how it was with Tommy and things that he did and he believed in that I believed this way. He was not much of an RPO guy. I'm more of an RPO guy. So there's always the thought of, okay, well, what's this guy going to be like? Is he going to be more in line with the things that I like? But it doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just personal preference. So there's always that kind of energy and excitement. But, there was always going to be question marks from a coaching standpoint going into next year, even if everybody came back. Because this is an offense that was not very good for most of the year last year. But we thought there was reasons for it, and we think they're going to get better, and that it's just a different type of nervous energy now. But it doesn't change the fact that I really believe this team has the talent to be really good on offense. I always got to see it. Nicholas Grosh with a question here, Ryan.
Do we need some experienced analysts? If so, what about David Cutcliffe, Jim Tressel, or Skip Holtz? Do you guys have any coaches in mind? Thank you, IB, for getting me through this latest soap opera.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And they're turning it into that. That's the thing. If they just would have said, you know what, quite clarification on how it went down, but yeah, we didn't do what we needed to do, and there you go. And you move on from it, right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So, and yeah.
Any analysts that pop out to you? I know she mentioned
David Cutcliffe is honestly, because here's the thing. David Cutcliffe was Gerad Parker worked for David Cutcliffe for 2 years. We know that David Cutcliffe holds Notre Dame in high regard. Like, that's one of the first phone calls I'd make if I was Gerad Parker and Marcus Freeman, because that's someone who can help Gerad Parker with this transition into a leadership role, is a guy like David Cutcliffe. Now, I don't know what kind of relationship they had at Duke. I have no clue. But for me, I absolutely would. Jim Tressel is not going to be an analyst. I mean, he is a mentor to Marcus Freeman in whatever capacity they have. Jim Tressel's not that guy. David Cutcliffe I would look at for sure. And there'd be others if you could. Skip Holtz, I don't know what Skip Holtz is up to these days, but David Cutcliffe is certainly a guy that I would so strongly look at. There's no question. I don't have guys. Part of the reason I don't try to get guys in mind is because I know coaches that are good, but there's also a lot of coaches out there that would be good fits for that could do a great job that I don't know. And if I start thinking about who I want and start vocalizing who I want, and then they hire someone else, it creates this perception of, well, you wanted this guy, but they ended up hiring this guy. That's a disappointment.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm just, hey, look, let me see who they bring in, and then I'll evaluate that guy. But one guy that I do feel confident saying now that I definitely would call as one of the analysts, because there's not just one, is David Cutcliffe, and see what he's doing. Like, hey, it's not even so much as an analyst. It's you can call him an analyst, whatever you want, but it's like he is a mentor to these young coaches to kind of help them kind of take that next step as coaches. That's what I would love to see the role for him.
Yes.
And it'd be like an off the field role, that kind of thing. But yeah, that'd be phenomenal.
And just having him around the quarterback coaches and quarterbacks at times, like just that, man, would just there's just so much you can get out of just talking to David Cutcliffe, just having a conversation with him.
Yep. Joe Papiti with this one. I'll just read this one real quick, Ryan. Joe just said, just want to say thank you for all the amazing content these last few crazy days, and also for shooting it to us straight with no spin or presumptions. You spit facts, and we're better for it. I appreciate that. I do very much appreciate that. And look, we're always going to give you the truth, and we'll give you what we know. There's no agendas. It's just, this is what it is. And I'm not saying others do. I'm just telling you what we do. I'm not focused on other people. I'm focusing on what we do. And we're always going to give you the truth. We're not going to be a spin machine. We're not the mouthpiece of the university. We're not their support system. We're not here to make them look better. That's their job. And they all make a whole lot more money than we do to do that job. And so you will always have that. You will always have that promise from us. And we're not going back down from when we know, because here's the thing, Ryan, you to do this job, because I want to make sure people understand that this is how we do things. When you are in a situation where you report something,
yep,
and facts come along, or more information comes along, or more data comes along, you have to be willing to say, hey, this is what I first reported, but after talking to some good sources that I've listened to, I believe that there's more to it than what we were reporting earlier, right? And so we will do that, and we have done that in the past, and we'll always do that. The reason that we're not backing down from our original report is it would be very easy for us to say, look, we hammered Notre Dame for this, and come to find out, this is actually what really happened. Pete Thamel got his information from Utah. That was Utah trying to do this, that, and the other thing. And you'd say, okay, look, we went off, but reality is this is what happened. I have no problem doing that. We've done that before. But that's not what happened here. When we responded, when we had our show on, was it Monday night? It was not in response to Pete Thamel's article. When I saw Pete Thamel's article or tweet, I then started reaching out to all my sources and got a very consistent message of what happened. That didn't change for days. It still hasn't changed from those sources. Now, other people are reaching out, coming back and saying, well, I talked to so-and-so, and they're saying that this is what really happened. If I found those things credible, I'd say, hey, look, here's what's going on. But they're not credible. They reek of spin. That's what they reek of. Because it doesn't make sense for it to have gone down the way that it went down and then be reported that it was reported, and for my sources to tell me how things went, if that's actually what happened. You get what I'm saying? So to do this job fair, even though we view how we do things at Irish Breakdown differently, we still report news. And if we are given information that's wrong, I have no problem saying so. No problem saying so. And honestly, it would be better for me to do that. It would be better for us financially to be hype men for Notre Dame. That's the fact. It is a financially better thing for us to be hype men for Notre Dame. Flat out. Proven true. It would also be good for us financially if we were willing to say, hey, we were wrong when we're wrong. And we will always do that. But the end of this day is it needs to actually be new information that's actually correct. And I'd have to defy logic and common sense to believe what they're telling me now and what they're telling people now. And there's no evidence of it. It's just we got crushed. And so 2-3 days later, we're coming out with stuff saying, hey, here's what really happened. It defies logic. It defies logic. So it just that's not why we're not backing down from what we've said. It defies logic. And the way that it went about is just, it doesn't make sense. And so we're not going to go with that. We're not going to jump on the, on the bandwagon of, well, this is what really happened to make people happy. I'm not doing that because I know with great confidence that what you're getting now is a spun version of the events to make Notre Dame allow Notre Dame to save face. That's what's happening. And so we're not backing down from it. I don't care what the repercussions are, Ryan. I really don't. I've been there before. And I don't care. Jacob Watson says, does the Ludwig backlash cause the admin to think how they handle things in the future since they tried to retract what they did and end up re-offering him?
I mean, does it? I mean, Jacob, I like to think that most people learn from their mistakes. Generally, not everyone is like that. That's not always the truth. But I would like to think that the admin is going to understand that, like, hey, this wasn't the best way to go about this, right? Like, this was a bad look on our part, even though we're trying to retract and deflect and whatever other word you want to use. I like to think, because I know Jack Swarbrick is a very smart guy. I know that Ron Powlis is a really smart guy. I know that the admin are smart people. Well, okay.
I'm going to agree with you on the first one. I'm not going to agree with you on the second one.
In theory, they're very smart people. So I would like
Allegedly.
to think that generally smart people learn from their mistakes. So I would hope that just based upon that fact, that the next time will look just a little different. Just a little different.
Yeah. Here's a good question from RJG Irving. Ryan?
The question is a buyout designed as a disincentivize to poaching staff or to compensate for the disruption to the team and cost of replacing the coach?
Yes, it is. Both of those things. It's meant to, number one, make it harder, maybe less likely that a coach leaves. It limits the number of schools that could potentially come after a guy because not all schools have the ability to go pay $2.8 million to get Andy Ludwig. And so that's part of it as well. It's also one of those things where if we're going to lose a guy, we're being taken care of because we now may have to go buy someone out to bring someone in, and so then maybe we don't have to buy. So if I'm getting a bigger buyout, knowing that it's whoever I have to go buy out to replace this guy is probably not going to cost as much, then I'm protecting myself. So it's meant to make it harder to poach a coach, but it's also meant to protect you and give you some financial, sort of a soft landing if you do lose a coach, that you now have the resources to go out there and pay for more if you need to get a guy that can replace the quality of that coach. So yes, that's exactly what a buyout is. And look, props to Utah for having these bigger buyouts. It explains why they have a lot of coaching continuity, Ryan, which is something Kyle Whittingham needs.
Yes.
To be completely honest with you.
You do. I mean, just like when you hired me, I have a big buyout so no one can steal me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. I almost had to sell my house to pay for you, Ryan. All right. John A1 with a question.
If you like the coach, the O-line coach hire, which side of the ball are you more concerned about, offense or defense? Defense?
No question.
Yeah.
No, it is for me because I know who's coaching the defense and I have concerns.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have concerns about the D-line. I have concerns about the defensive coordinator and linebackers coaching. Very much so. I'm complete confidence in Mike Mickens in every aspect, and I have complete confidence in Chris O'Leary as a coach. My only questions with Chris O'Leary come from recruiting, but he's proven to be a pretty darn good position coach, in my opinion, in a very short period of time. So, Ryan, I think you've heard some good things about Max Bulla. I've heard some good things about Max Bulla. I think Sean Davis is going to talk about some things. I don't know if they talked about that in today's show. But Max, at the end of the day, Max Bulla is a GA, right? I mean, my issue is more with we said this last year. The issue with the linebackers was more about the volume of scheme that was put on their plate that just kept them from playing as fast as they need to play. Those questions have not, those concerns have not gone away. And, you hear things from the freshmen, we had a story with Preston Zinter talking about how, he was going to be used they're learning all the positions and stuff like that. And it's like, it's just the same thing,
cross training already. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And early enrollee freshman is cross
sure,
training in the winter.
And so those are questions I have more, and I have more questions about the personnel on defense to a degree as well. And Ryan, you know, I've said this before. I've said for years, especially recent years, there's been plenty of years in Notre Dame where the offense had more talent than the defense. The defense was just coached way better. And now I think, that's certainly true now at most positions, but like I have a lot more confidence in the talent of the offensive line than the defensive line, partly because the offensive line has more proven talent, more proven production.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I hopes on defense. I hope Riley Mills breaks out. I hope Jordan Patel breaks out. I hope Josh Burnham takes a big jump. I hope Tyson Ford can kind of get himself going. I hope that, that Javonte Jean-Baptiste can step in and be a really good player. I hope JD Bertrand plays his best. I hope Maris figures it out. I hope that they can find a way to make, get Jack Kaiser in more good situations for him and where he can really thrive and put him in better spots. I hope they have good health at safety, because if they don't, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of I hopes there. On offense, it's like I know these guys are talented, and I know that if they just do things that we've already seen them do, like with Lorenzo Styles, I don't need Lorenzo Styles to do anything this year that I haven't already seen him do in a Notre Dame uniform. I just need him to do it consistently. That's it. And so, that's really where you're at. That's what I need to see. So, yeah, as long as the coaching staff hires are made, I'm going to be more concerned about the defense, right?
It's fair.
Yeah. All right, we did have a couple super chats here. The Spaniard said, "Thank you very much for this. Jack yelled at me about yesterday's finger gun comment." Thank you for that. And then Tyler Smith said, "How's Max Bulla, the guy we took from Alabama? Look, heard a lot of good things about him.
Yeah,
he was a really good linebacker in college, despite not being overly athletic. I mean, he really wasn't a very athletic player, which is why he went undrafted. He was a 3-time All Big Ten player and went undrafted."
Yeah.
I think that should tell you everything you need to know about his athletic ability, but he was still a very good college football player.
Smart player.
Yeah. I mean, do I know he's a good linebackers coach? I don't know that, but I've heard good things. He was a GA for 3 years with Nick Saban at Alabama. If he did not show promise, with Nick Saban, I guarantee you he would not have lasted 3 years with Nick Saban if he didn't show some promise as a coach. And the other thing too is there's a level of confidence here because Coach Freeman did work with him at Cincinnati. And let's be honest about this. Part of the concern people have about Gerad Parker, in my opinion, is it's the perception that he is Freeman's guy. And we saw what happened with Brian Kelly when he would bring in his guys. And it didn't go well a lot of times. Not always. Mike Elson was one of his guys, and Mike Elson did fine. Mike Denbrock was one of his guys, and Mike Denbrock did a very good job at Notre Dame. The difference here, however, is most of Marcus Freeman's guys that he has on staff have been home runs. Mike Mickens, home run, who he worked with in the past. Brian Mason, home run. Chad Bowden, home run. Most of the guys that Marcus Freeman has brought with him that he's worked with on a coaching standpoint have been pretty good. The exception is Al Washington. Now, we'll see if Al Washington can step up in year 2, and I hope that he does. But, those are good. That's a good hit rate. So when you look at Gino and bringing him in, Coach Goduli bringing him in, the fact that he did work with Coach Parker. And I think Gerad Parker was a home run in his first year as a tight ends coach, right? So in that role that he was originally hired for, he did very well, in my opinion, despite dealing with injuries all year. Yeah. So far, his track record of bringing in coaches he's worked with before is pretty good. And so I think that gives me a little bit of optimism as well. And Max Bulla is one of those guys. Max Bulla was a GA on the 2019 Cincinnati team. So Coach Freeman has worked hand in hand with him before. And so I think that's another reason why I give a little bit of benefit of the doubt to that hire being a good one, because and what we're told is he will be coaching the linebackers as the position coach next year, even though he's a GA. But that's not my issue. My issue is the scheme aspect of it. That's my greater concern, right? I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's my greater concern at the position.
Yeah, I mean, I also have just it starts from the top down for me defensively. That's where it is, right? I mean, there was even some positions last year, Brian, where we're just like, a younger player can't do better than this. Like they can't do better than this, And I'm just like,
right.
I also think there's a little bit of a stuck in your way type of vibe defensively as well, which combining all of that is just, there's too many question marks for me right now, which is why my impulse was immediately defense, even with some questions as far as what the offensive play calling and development and all that type of stuff's going to be, you know?
Right.
Like,
So you're saying, Ryan, it's a combination of, we have seen this defensive staff not do what we think it needs to do, and there's some questions in some spots about the talent. Whereas offensively, it's like the unknown almost helps them because we don't have that negative thing with them.
So we're focusing,
right?
Yeah.
So we're focusing more on the talent, and the talent's pretty good.
Yes,
I think that's fair. Is that kind of, am I reading what you said correctly that way, Ryan?
Yep,
I think that's very
right.
fair. I think that's very fair. And then we'll kind of wrap up here with Jacob Watson. So, Jacob, this is where we're going to kind of end things today. So why don't we get this one here?
Jacob says, do you guys know if Gerad Parker is the type of coach that will play the best player and not the most experienced player?
I can only offer a guess. That's the thing for me. I can only offer a guess. And my guess would be yes, because the guess comes from the things we talked about earlier about how they're going to be more details oriented. They're going to be more about fundamentals, maybe less volume. Those things all lead to younger players having a greater opportunity to come in and find early success, because there's less for them to have to do mentally and technically and those kind of things. And the less volume you can put on a younger player, I don't care how smart a younger player is, the better he's going to be. So I would assume yes, but with a lot of these things, Jacob, we don't really know until we see it, right? So we're going to do our best to give you educated guesses on certain things. And until we actually see it, I don't really know. But based on what we have been told, I feel good about that direction. So, yeah.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yep. So that's going to do it for today's show, everybody. I appreciate you very much. Brad Sanders asked if there'll be a tailgate for the Blue Gold game. Depends on the weather. So we'll let you know as we get closer and closer to that. We'd like to have one, but it's not a guarantee. We had one last year. It was fun, but it just depends on what the weather's like. So we'll have a much better idea as we get into kind of mid-April on what we're going to do there for that one. So, hey, folks, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that if you're listening via a podcast app. And, of course, sign up for the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Thank you all so very much. Have a great rest of your day. We'll drop Ryan's show tonight, the draft show tonight. Also getting ready to edit and publish a show here soon on the CFB Nation channel. And, of course, we will be back. So I was not originally going to be on the show on Friday because we were going to do a mailbag today and then do something different tomorrow. But they canceled the Notre Dame player availability for tomorrow because it makes sense to do so with everything going on. So I'll actually be here tomorrow for the mailbag. So we'll have our mailbag tomorrow and then our TCF show on Saturday with Sean and I. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.